Thursday, March 13th, 2014. This time we will take care of some housekeeping items. This meeting is being televised on Henry County TV Channel 14 and will be rebroadcast each Thursday at 7:30 p.m. A video of the meeting is also available on demand on the county website. Now would be a great time to turn off those cell phones, if you have any, and if I could ask everyone that has a hat on, if you could please remove your hat in respect to the board. If you wish to speak tonight, we ask that you fill out a public hearing speaking card. We are going to allot 10 minutes for those in favor of a case and 10 minutes for those in opposition of a case. For example, if 10 people wish to speak, they all share the 10-minute slot, and so on. Please address the board and not the audience when you come up to speak. When you turn your back to the board, we're going to assume that you are finished speaking, and we're going to ask you to please be seated and give someone else time to speak. So please make sure that you are addressing the board and the subject matter that is at hand. At this time, let's stand for the invocation and pledge by DeLandra Nelson.
Heavenly Father, we thank you this evening. We ask that you continue to be with us and bless us. We ask that you guide our decisions that's made before us this evening. These things we ask in your name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. At this time, I'd also like to welcome Sandy Nesbitt to the Zoning Board District 2. So, welcome, Sandy. Okay, this meeting is now called to order. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I so move.
Have a motion to approve the agenda. Have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Risher. All those in favor indicate by raising your hand. Okay, the agenda is approved. All right, the next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes for January 9th, 2014. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes of January 9th, 2014? Mr. Head makes a motion to approve the minutes of January 9th, 2014. Do I have a second?
I second.
Mr. Nelson gave the second of the approval of the minutes. Any discussion? There's no discussion of the approval of the minutes. All in favor indicate by raising your hand. None opposed. Thank you. At this time, we will have planning staff comments.
There are no comments from staff at this time.
We're now going to move to the agenda items. So if we can, we have case number 1.
Yes. CU 1401, AT&T of Alpharetta, Georgia, requests a conditional use for property located at 298 South Ola Road in land lot 176 of the 7th District. The request is for a new wireless communications facility in the RA Residential Agricultural Zoning District. Commission District 1, the item will be presented by Chris Manzinga from RCC Consulting and Jonathan Bullard from the Foresight Group.
All right. I'm Chris Manzinga with RCC Consultants. We're hired as a technical consultant for the county review of your conditional use WCF applications. The one in question here is AT&T application for 150-foot monopole. Submitted by Milestone Wireless on behalf of AT&T. The parcel is, I think, approximately 191 acres at this site. Upon our review of their application, we found a cell tower that was within about a mile or so, a mile and a half of that site that they didn't vet originally. We requested that they do that. They did vet that site, submitted the coverage RF information supporting their cause that site didn't meet their coverage needs. So that took that out of the equation. There are a few other little nuances in some of their landscaping issues that could be easily changed on the plans to meet the requirements of your code. But basically, they met all of the requirements of the Land Development Code, and except for the balloon test, which I think they have completed, but the visual impact assessment has not been completed at this time, which we discussed earlier is a subjective review of what the tower will look like if constructed. So I believe our recommendation was to approve once that visual impact assessment has been completed and reviewed by the board and the technical consultant to a satisfactory level.
Okay, is that it?
That's it.
Okay, your report, okay. I didn't want to, sometimes if people take a breath, I interrupt, so I just want to make sure I wasn't cutting you off. At this time, do we have any questions from the board members for the staff? I have a question. Your last comment about the study of the balloon test, and there was something else?
The visual impact.
The visual impact, okay.
Photo simulation.
And you said that you based your... You
Conditional
said
approval based on...
Conditional approval. Okay, so if that study came in and it was...
If it was something that somebody just couldn't live with, then yes, I think you would still have it'd be within your rights to then deny, because it's a conditional approval, right? Sherry probably could help
We
me out
can
with
put a
that.
condition on that it has to, the what is that called? That you're going to be doing a visual...
The visual impact assessment must be submitted prior to the issuance of a development permit.
Is that one of the conditions that's on here, Sherry? You would have to add that?
And then there was some discussion of a camouflage tower possibly helping mitigate any issues with aesthetics as well.
And if you look at the staff recommendation, look at condition number 3. Planning staff has recommended approval. The applicant completes the visual impact assessment per section 70508 of the ULDC and is reviewed and accepted by the county prior to the issuance of a development permit. We'll just add that sentence to it.
Prior to what?
Prior to the issuance of a development permit.
Okay, do any of the board members have any other questions for staff? No other questions? Okay, at this time I would like to ask the applicant to please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is Jeffrey Evans. I'm from Milestone Wireless. I'm here on behalf of AT&T, and wanted to speak just briefly and give you a little bit more detail in summary terms of the application. First of all, I wanted to state the objective, why we're doing this. The objective is to improve the wireless coverage for the citizens of Henry County that live in the area of South Ola Road, Antioch Road, and on the east side, Keys Ferry Road, and up toward Highway 81. The purpose of this is to basically provide seamless coverage to the greatest extent possible. There is some coverage there, but there's a deficiency that AT&T is trying to address. Secondly, I wanted to talk briefly about how we went about this. The first steps that we typically take, according to the mandate from the ULDC from Henry County, is we try and find tall structures that we can utilize to avoid having to build something from the ground up. In this particular case, the closest two structures, the one that was mentioned by Mr. Munzingo was a tower that was located 1.3 miles northeast, just a little bit near Stallsworth and Keys Ferry. The other was a tower, existing tower, 2.1 miles to the west. At the request of your review consulting firm, RCC Consulting, we vetted, as he mentioned, we took a look at the coverage predictions that would result from using that tower, and we found that there was still a deficiency with a greater portion of the area. A portion of it was covered very minimally, but the majority of the coverage objective was not met. So that's why we were not able to utilize that tower. Lastly, I wanted to point out a couple of other things. As he mentioned, we are in compliance with all the conditions of the ULDC, except at this time for Section 7.05 .07 and .09. Those two, or .08 and .09, I'm sorry, that's regarding the balloon test. And I want to basically apologize to the board at this time for not being in compliance at the hearing. We were not aware of the fact that at the time we submitted the application, we should have had that done. It's a new code in reference to wireless communication facilities. So what we did is we tried to schedule that with respect to the staff's recommendations, and we came up a little bit late. The balloon test that was mentioned previously by the consultant has been completed. The visual assessment is being prepared, and we are guaranteeing that that will be submitted for the record. So that is something that's already in place. It's partially complete, but we do not have it. We expect to have it probably the middle of next week at the latest. So it's being worked on as we speak. In that respect, since we have already met all of the other requirements of the ULDC with respect to tall structures, we respectfully request that the board, as recommended by its staff consultant, approve our application as submitted. And we will comply with the conditions as stated regarding the visual assessment. I'd like to reserve any remaining time that I might have for any questions that may be asked by the board.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. The board, any of the board members have any questions for the applicant at this time? Mr. Head?
Since the balloon test was not submitted, would you have any problem with reinstating it with this being done?
Forgive me, I'm not sure I understand your question.
Since all of the tests were not in when the applicant was taken, what would you have a problem with resubmitting it?
Well, what we said we would prefer to do is make the approval of the board conditioned upon receipt of the visual assessment. That I think, instead, you have all of the documentation that other than that already in your possession. The application has been complete. There's a letter of intent that you have in your possession that has all of the details of the facility. It also goes into great detail about how we arrived at the site, our site selection process. It shows the map of the existing tower locations that I already mentioned. So everything has been submitted to date, except, and as I mentioned, we sent out the letter, and as I mentioned earlier, we were a little bit hazy about when we had to actually provide the balloon test, and we came up a little behind schedule, but we did submit letters out. Some of the letters came in a little bit behind the original date, but we did meet the March 10th date. That was the date that we originally, that the balloon test was completed. So it's been done, and some people that may be in your viewing audience may have seen it. So we have complied with that portion of it. We just have to provide the written documents that show the visual assessment of how the tower will look on the property.
Okay, Mr. Head, just for a second, would it help if staff read the 6 conditions that they have on their request for approval? Would you like to hear those 6? Yes. It's in your book.
Yes.
But just for the record, for the audience and for those that are maybe watching, can we get someone to read those? Would that be, Sherry, who would that be?
Okay. I'll go ahead and read them into the record. Planning staff has recommended approval of the requested conditional use with the following conditions. All building, fire, and accessibility codes shall be met. Number 2, notwithstanding anything to the contrary herein, no zoning conditions imposed herein shall be interpreted or applied in such a manner as to require any violation of any existing building, development, stormwater, and or any other applicable codes. Number 3, the applicant completes the visual impact assessment per section 70508 of the Unified Land Development Code and is reviewed and accepted by the county prior to the issuance of a development permit. Number 4, the applicant must update their proposed plan to satisfy section 50104 of the ULDC. Number 5, the applicant updates their proposed plan to satisfy section 70509 letter B of the ULDC. And finally, number 6, the applicant verifies that the proposed generator will meet the noise requirements of Section 70501.
Thank you,
That's
Ms.
all.
Matthews. Appreciate that. Okay, Mr. Head, you understand? Okay. Mr. Nelson.
Just one question. Now, at what point next week will that be ready?
Mr. Nelson, we expect that will be done by Wednesday of next week.
Okay.
I've already made a call requesting a timeline on it, but it's already in process, but we expect it should be in by Wednesday.
Okay.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, Mr. Evans, you may be seated.
Thank you.
At this time, we're going to allow 10 minutes for those who want to speak in favor of this case. So all those that want to speak in favor of this case, we're going to allow 10 minutes. Okay, I don't see anyone rushing to the podium, so at this time, we're going to allow 10 minutes for those who want to speak in opposition of this case. Please don't forget to state your name and address for the record.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Shelley Dobbs at 464 South Ola Road. And I'm not sure how the process works, but I haven't received anything whatsoever in the mail in regards to the cell tower that will be installed directly across the street from where I live. I just noticed that the zoning signs were posted last Thursday, and I don't know how or at what time do I present a motion to table any further discussions or actions for an additional 90 days.
Sherry, do I answer questions at this? Yes. You don't make a motion.
Okay.
You just give comment.
Okay.
And this is you're speaking in opposition of that. So, and I'm assuming you'll have to get with staff. State your address again because I didn't hear what you.
464 South Ola.
I'm sorry. What's your name again for the record?
Shelley Dobbs. I filled out one of your forms.
Madam Chair, what I'm doing is going through all of the certified, because we do require that all correspondence be sent via certified mail, and then they provide us with receipt of the certified mail. So if you'll just go on to the next item, I'll look through our certified mail receipts that we've received, and then I'll also look at our layout of all of the individuals, because if there's 2 ways you would have been notified.
Mm-hmm.
Our code requires that a postcard be sent to all property owners who are adjacent to the property.
Mm-hmm.
So if your property is directly adjacent, you would have received a postcard from planning staff. But then you're also, you would have received some type of notification because of where you're located in regards to the balloon test. So give me an opportunity to look through and just see where
Okay.
we sent that information, and then I'll follow up with you.
I have not seen anything, and from my understanding, just looking at the information that has been provided, if I walk out my front door, I can see it.
Okay. And what we can do, Madam Chair, after the other opposition speaks, if Mr. Evans has a copy of the site plan, if he could put it up on the overhead to give the public an idea of where exactly that tower is going to be located. And that
Okay,
may,
I've got a map of it now.
Okay.
Because I found out, and that's how I've done my research. My neighbor told me about it, but
Okay.
I've received no notification.
Okay, let me take a look. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition of this case?
Kevin Rakestraw, 459 South Ola Road. I saw the sign go up a couple weeks ago, got the thing in the mail, and it wasn't until last Wednesday when somebody told me to check the sign itself was when I figured out what it was, and then I saw it was a cell tower. And then I started doing research on it. Do I want this next to me? And the research I've done says, no, I do not want this next to me. This is a very dangerous thing, especially for kids. I know there's science out there that they have the CTIA, that they buy their science. I think it's very dangerous. I have 3. Oh, sorry, I forgot the rules. I have 3 kids, and I just moved into that house in July. One of the reasons I selected that house was because there was no cell phone tower near it. And now they're putting it next door to me. The balloon test that he mentioned, I saw in the code, that, at least in the documents here, that the first test was supposed to be on a weekend, and then the second test could possibly be during a week. And then both tests were scheduled for Monday. I think it had to happen between 7 and 4 when people aren't home. From what I see, from the research I've done, these people like to sneak in, not let the neighbors know, and the thing pops up before anybody knows what's going on. I went around my neighborhood, and I have 63 signatures of people who are opposed to this. And that was just, first day I went out was Sunday. I made the mistake of talking to people but not getting signatures. I contacted Bo, is it Morris? Moss? Bo Moss, to let him know. He said, you got to get a petition. So in just Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, an hour or two after work, I've gotten 63 signatures about people who don't want this near them. And we're all concerned citizens. We're all voters. We don't want it here. We don't want it close to our families. And so besides the fact that it's dangerous, which I know the World Health Organization said it's possibly carcinogenic, and then is our property value. Because I can tell you what, I made the decision on the house because there's no cell phone tower next to it. And I've had neighbors tell me, nobody's going to want to buy your house because you know what, when they put that up, I want to move. I don't want to live there anymore. I'm happy. My wife and I saved 6 years to buy this house, and now I want to leave. I love the area. I love McDonough. I love downtown. I'm in love with this city. I love the schools. I had another neighbor tell me, and I think her husband's here, that people move to Ola not because it's close to the interstate. They move there because of the schools, and people with schools move there for the schools have families and young kids, and they don't want to be next to cell towers. And at first I thought we had no hope because it's big money and it's the government and no one cares. But my friend is a local lobbyist in Atlanta, and he said that the local government can help me and they can help the citizens. And that's when I reach out to you, the board, to help your citizens. You know, you're our only defense. I know the federal government's been bought off. It's only at the local level that I believe I have a fighting chance. And like I said, I just got this going. Talked to Bo Moss, did everything I could. You know, I've gotten to as many neighbors, but I hadn't got a chance to talk to everybody because some of the people I talked to on Sunday, they work on nights, and they didn't want it here. So I just ask you guys that, hey, you know, just look out for your people because we don't want it here. I don't know if I turn this into you guys or what, but I got.
For the record, you need to give that to staff, please.
Okay.
Thank you so much. We have 4 minutes and 32 seconds. Oh, I'm sorry, sir. Were you finished? I don't want to cut you off. You have more to say.
Like I said, it's just like I said, it's property value. When people come and they see that thing next to my house, they're not going to want to buy it. When that house went up for sale, it was a short sale. We got it. I went 105 over, and I'm an offer. I don't know how many offers get turned away, but I'm an offer that wouldn't come in and get that house. So it's definitely hurting my property value. And just please protect the citizens. Let them put it somewhere else. Let them put it next to somebody who doesn't care, who wants it there. But it's not us. We don't want it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Please come up to the podium and
My
state
name
your
is
name.
Jackie Hyde. I live at 1032 Oladale Drive, which is in the Ola Crossing subdivision. My only concern is when they did the balloon test, they sent out notification, but many of the neighbors didn't receive it until after the test was already done, so we didn't get to see it. I think only 2 or 3 of our neighbors actually got the letter on time and actually could see it. Most of us didn't get it until after it was already done, and we were told about it afterwards. So that kind of bothered me. In addition, the map shows it in a different location than where they did the balloon test. So some of our neighbors did actually get to see it. And if it's where the map shows it, it's different than where they did the balloon test. That's the only thing that I had to say, and that's the only thing I really have an issue with. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition of this case? I see some people moving around like they want to get up, so I just want to make sure I give everybody plenty of time. All right, we're going to move on. Then I would like the applicant to please come back up to the podium.
And Madam Chair, before the applicant returns, I do want to enter into the record that we did receive via mail to letters in support of the tower. One was from a Mr. James Howell, and the other was from Mr. Jim Howell. So those applicants, or those individuals, are both in support of the request. I'll enter those letters into the record.
What is their address? If you don't have that, it is for the record.
I may have my towers confused. Disregard.
Okay, so you did not receive any correspondence?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, so it has been requested that possibly we see a map of the location of the tower, and if you have that, if you could, so we can see it on the screen, I think there's a camera there, and you can place it right there where that Henry County logo is. And then, oh, you've got it, okay, Jeremy. And then if you could show us, there was a comment made about the balloon test being done in a different location. If you could explain that and why, if that was a statement that we need to know about. Can you see?
No way. Just as on the map. Could we pull the area up on the, we can't? Okay.
Jeremy, is it upside down?
Is that
I mean,
upside
does it
down?
matter? I mean, a map's a map. We just need to know.
This is South Ola Road here. And that's the proposed cell tower site.
Okay. Okay. Let me, Madam Chairman, let me try and address this as best possible. I was asking Jeremy if we could get an aerial, but I understand we cannot. Wanted to give you a perspective that you can't see there. First of all, I wanted to address one thing about the closeness. We selected this site because it's part of 191 acres. What you see there is a very, very large parcel that is protected partially by what you can't see is some wooded area right behind it. There's approximately a 350-foot right or access road that will extend from South Ola Road into the site. And what we selected that site simply because it has some natural vegetation that would shield the lower portion of the compound from view from passers-by. The second thing I wanted to mention is the height. We went to the maximum height available per the ULDC for Henry County, which was 150 feet. We didn't attempt to exceed that, and we were in compliance there. What we intend to do here is to do our level best to shield it from view and to also keep it to the point where it's usable. Wanted to address one other comment that was, a couple of other comments, if I might, that were made. With respect, there seems to have been a lot of concern with respect to the balloon test. What we could do to accommodate that is we would, at the board's request, and if it's okay with the board, we would be delighted to schedule a new one and give the community, and we'll see if we can do another one on the weekend so that everyone will get a chance to see the balloon fly in the air and see how high it will be. If that would satisfy the board, we would be willing to do that. That's an accommodation. Given the lateness of the mail out and the fact that some of the residents didn't see it, we would certainly be willing to do such a thing. The second concern I want to address is something that's come up quite a bit. The gentleman just mentioned how dangerous this is. There is no credible evidence that's been produced in the last 15 years about the dangers posed by the use and the operation of cell towers. These are unmanned facilities that provide wireless transmissions that typically occur 150 to 120 to 150 feet in the air outward. The signal dissipates in a very short range. That's the reason that you have to have other facilities to pick up when the other signal drops off. So there's absolutely no evidence and no proof at all that there's any danger posed to any human beings or animals, for that fact, by the use of cell towers. In fact, your own county has a cell tower right off Highway 81. I can't remember the exact street. There's a subdivision built around it. I spoke to a neighbor, a gentleman who lived right next door about it, and I specifically asked the question, are you concerned about this? He says, absolutely not. So I went in, I saw him in his yard, cutting his yard, and I went to ask the question. So I'm not saying something that doesn't already exist in your county. As I mentioned before, the objective of this site is to improve the coverage and provide wireless seamless coverage to the citizens of this county. That is the reason we're here. We're certainly not trying to sneak anything over, and we want to make sure that we're in compliance and we satisfy all the requirements of the board to its fullest extent. So I wanted to just make that point clear and make sure that nobody in here believes that AT&T is trying to pull something over someone. We're not trying to do that. We've done everything transparent and above board, and we've complied with the terms, and we're certainly willing to go overboard if that means doing another test. We'll be glad to do that.
Mr. Evans, thank you for your comments. And just so everyone knows, wait for us to ask you the question. We appreciate the comments. Let us ask you the questions. If we have any concerns, we'll ask you those questions,
Yes,
and then
ma'am.
you can, because that's not a time for rebuttal, but that's okay. I didn't want to interrupt you, but thank you, because it was very informative, and hopefully folks got a little insight of what's going on, and we appreciate your willingness to cooperate and work with residents. I mean, that's so noted. Do any of the staff, any of the board members have any other questions for the applicant after seeing the map? Do you have any questions about the balloon test or any of the recommendations that he's asking, that he's saying that he can provide?
I just have a question in reference to the letter. One individual stated that the letters was received after the balloon test. Yeah, do we have any documentation of that, or what actually happened with that, or who sent the letters out?
May I answer that?
Yes.
The requirement of the code is, Mr. Nelson, that we put two alternate dates in to the letter that goes out to the, so what we did, we missed the first date, but we made the second date, and that was the confusion. That's why I was offering the board the option that AT&T would be willing to do another balloon.
And had the letters been sent out at that point?
The letters had been sent out prior to the second date, yes, sir, not the first. So what happened was, as I said, we missed the March, we had March 3rd and March 10th. The letters went out after March 3rd, but before March 10th. The actual date of the balloon test was March 10th. They went out 3 or 4 days before that.
Is there a time stipulation for those letters to go out, Jeremy? In the code, does it say they have to have, a month's notice, 3 weeks' notice, 1 week's notice for the residents to know ahead of time that they're going to do this balloon study?
Yes, it's 7 days and 14 days in advance of the first test date in the newspaper.
So are you saying those letters did go out the 7 days according to code?
We did not. We did not meet that. And that's why I offered the board the option that we would be delighted to do a new balloon test and give it some time for review. That's a fair, and I mentioned that initially because I knew that was something that we needed to comply with.
I have a comment on something that you had originally said, that you chose this location because of the wooded area. So my question to you is, you were only leasing how much part of that property? Or are you leasing, or did you buy it?
No, we leased it.
You leased it.
Well,
and how much of that property, or of all of those acres, are you leasing?
100 feet by 100 feet.
Okay. So, and how long is that lease?
It's a 5-year lease with 4 5-year options.
So what happens to the tower if, say, someone comes in and wants to buy that property and develop that property, what happens to the tower if your lease is up? Do you guys take it down?
Well, let me just give you a perspective to answer that. This becomes part of the network that services the entire county. So this particular section of the county is not just relying on this one tower. It's actually provided to work in conjunction with several other towers in the area that already have AT&T equipment. So taking it down is not something that they typically do. However, there are very rare circumstances when a tower is what they call decommissioned. We don't expect that will be the case in this one.
There's a reason I'm asking these questions.
Okay.
Because this is a large piece of property and it could be sold for development, and some of those trees could be removed and then you would see the tower. So I'm just looking for the future, what's there. This is folks that want to be in a rural community, and rural area. So, I don't know what's going to happen to that property in the future. So we have to look, for the future and what's going to happen and what could happen. And if you have a cell tower there, do you build around it, that sort of thing. So that's the only reason I ask those questions. So we can as citizens, we can kind of get a visualization of, okay, what's going to happen, what could happen, what's going on, that sort of thing. So we appreciate your comments. So anyone else have any questions? Sherry.
And I just wanted to clarify the question that she posed to staff. The balloon test has to be advertised in the paper 7 days and 14 days, but the public has to be notified 2 weeks prior to the balloon test. So I wanted to correct that because I misspoke.
Okay, and it's for the record, we know that was not done. They were notified, but not in the according to code.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you so very much. I think no other questions for the applicant. You may be seated. Thank you, Mr. Evans. Okay, we can call the case, please.
CU 1401, AT&T of Alpharetta, Georgia, requests a conditional use for property located at 298 South Ola Road in land lot 176 of the 7th District. The request is for a new wireless communications facility in the RA Residential Agricultural Zoning District, Commission District 1.
I have a motion for denial of this case. Is there a second? We have a motion by Mr. Head for denial, a second by Mr. Nelson. Any discussion? No discussion. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by raising your hand. Okay, motion carried. Thank you. Next case, please.
Before we proceed to the next case, I just want to make a general announcement. All cases and all items that are heard tonight, if the items are either approved or denied and you have a legal standing, you have 30 days from the date of this decision to file an appeal. That appeal must be filed with the Henry County Planning and Zoning Office, and then it will be forwarded to the Board of Commissioners at the next available meeting.
And Sherry, for housekeeping for the members of the board, do they need to state, because I thought you said we had to state the reason for denial.
It's always good to state the reason for denial. We can go on to the next item, and we'll just need to make sure going forward that we state right
The reason for denial. Okay, And I forgot to ask you that, and I apologize. Okay, item number 2 on the agenda.
CU 1402, Jennifer A. Blackburn, as attorney for Verizon Wireless of Atlanta, Georgia, requests a conditional use for property located at 869 Turner Road in land lot 154 of the 1st District. The request is for a new wireless communication facility in the RA Residential Agricultural Zoning District, District 3. The request is presented by Chris Manzingo with RCC Consulting.
Chris Manzingo with RCC Consultants, the technical representative for the county on wireless facility review. This particular application is for another 150-foot monopole. in a RA district, as was mentioned. This is for Verizon Wireless. They too met the requirements of the ULDC with the exception of a few things. Most of those are easily remedied, landscaping issues and such. They do have an issue with the setback requirement that's in the ULDC. Requires a minimum of the tower height from the nearest residential or the next property line. This parcel is relatively small, excuse me, 1.2 acres. The owner of this parcel owns the surrounding parcels, but he still has to meet the setback for this parcel for that tower. So they're not meeting that requirement. They did submit their balloon test. Their visual impact assessment has been completed and all that's been submitted. But based on the fact that they're not meeting their setback requirement, we had recommended denial unless they can come up with another means to remedy or mediate the setback requirement that's required by the Unified Development Code.
Okay, thank you.
Done.
Do the board members have any questions for staff at this time? If you just stay there. Mr. Risher, you didn't have anything?
Yes, sir.
Or you do have some?
Due to the parcel size, is there any remediation that that our cell tower ordinance provides to make sure that there's a clearance if this tower were to fall?
They did submit a letter from the engineer, the tower engineering firm, that it would stay within the smallest setback they had, which was 32 feet. The tower has been engineered so that it would fail. If it does fail, that it would basically break from 32 feet from the top and fall, would stay inside the property lines as is. But that's not stipulated in your land development code as acceptable.
Any other questions for staff from board members? Okay, would the applicant please come forward? Sherry, should he stay up? Should staff stay? Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the board, my name is David Kirk with the law firm of Troutman Sanders, representing Verizon Wireless. I'm here tonight to discuss with you and ask your approval of the conditional use permit and later a variance to allow for the location and operation of this 150-foot monopole, which is actually a 145-foot tower with a 5-foot lightning rod on Turner Road. The subject, just as background, really for both these cases, if you will, subject property is one of 6 parcels that were subdivided by the property owner prior to the recession in hopes of developing them as individual lots to sell as a source of income. Many of you may have heard from Mr. Howell directly and know the difficulties he's faced in recent years. Like with many similar situations with the downturn of the economy, this development never came to fruition. Verizon Wireless did not create this existing situation, but we're now in the position to utilize one of these parcels to fill a significant deficiency in Verizon's network and provide some income to Mr. Howell. Importantly, he retains that ownership of the remaining 5 parcels. By locating a new facility at this site, Verizon will be able to provide much-needed coverage for solid voice and broadband data coverage in areas currently not supported by Verizon's existing sites in the area. As part of the materials that we provided in support of the application is an extensive radio frequency analysis, including mapping that illustrates these deficiencies and how this facility will improve service. Your consultant's report indicates we've met our burden in this area to demonstrate the need for the facility. Allowing the situation to remain as it is would effectively prohibit service in this area. The facility is designed to accommodate a total of 4 carriers. Verizon Wireless and other telecommunication carriers, as the previous applicant stated, typically try to co-locate on existing towers. The report that was provided by staff clearly indicates that there are no existing towers within this area on which we could co-locate. But we want to provide significant improvements to residents of the county and others traveling through this area. As I've noted, we have 2 applications before you tonight, one for the conditional use permit and one for the associated setback variances. Though they relate to the same facility, these are really independent requests, and I think it's important to consider these requests separately. So let's talk first about the conditional use permit. If you read the consultant's report, and I'm sure you all have, it states we meet the criteria for the grant of conditional use permit, yet it recommends denial of the requested conditional use essentially on the grounds that we need a variance. This is, to me, a sort of perplexing recommendation, though in conversations with the consultant beforehand, I think I understand what he's saying. What he's saying is if you can mitigate the impact on adjacent properties in some manner, then he would recommend approval. He think the conditional use permit is appropriate for approval. And certainly you can ask him that yourself, but that's certainly my understanding of the conversation with him. So rather than offering a recommendation of denial, I submit the more appropriate recommendation, and I think the more appropriate action by this body would be to employ a positive approach and approve the application conditioned upon either granting the variances requested, meeting the setbacks through the adjustment of the lot lines, or meeting the intent of the setback requirement by recording what we call a fall zone easement on the adjoining properties that are owned by Mr. Howell, our property owner, to prevent any residential or other habitable structure from being constructed within 150 feet of the tower. I think during your work session, staff handed you gave you a handout that lists these three possibilities, and let me talk through those with you. Option one would be to grant the variance, and I hope you'll consider this at the appropriate time, but even if you don't approve the variance, that still leaves us at least one option. The second option would be to adjust the lot lines. We could do this physically, basically replat. If you look on the second page, and I'll put this up here so folks can see. Just very quickly, this parcel outlined in red is the subject property. This parcel, this, and this are all owned by Mr. Howell. We could adjust the lot lines by taking the eastern boundary out a little over 100 feet and the southern boundary down by about 65 feet, or do it in a circular fashion. The only issue with this is it would render this lot too small. It would be essentially what we call a non-conforming lot, and it could not be platted that way. Additionally, it would most likely cut off the access to this flag lot, which has to have access to the road in order to be usable. I submit this approach would impose an unnecessary hardship on Mr. Howell, and that's the reason that I'm offering the third option, which offers the same amount of legal protection without the hardship. And that would be to allow Mr. Howell to place, again, what I said called a fall zone easement on those two adjoining properties, essentially drawing a line, 150-foot radius line or circle around the tower, and recording that easement that prohibits the construction of a habitable structure within 150 feet of the tower. Thus, the size of the first lot would remain conforming, and the access to the second lot would not be impacted. Mr. Howell could eventually develop these lots or offer these lots for development subject to these restrictions. It is possible they would reduce the value of the properties in question, but it certainly would not extinguish the value of the properties in question. I respectfully submit that the approval of the conditional use permit with these three conditions would provide adequate safeguards to the public, would give Verizon and Mr. Howell the ability to work with each other and with county officials to determine how best to accomplish the county's goal without imposing an undue hardship on Mr. Howell, and importantly would allow Verizon Wireless to adequately serve the personal, business, and emergency communication needs of the community. I respectfully submit, and I think your staff would agree, that a fair reading of the consultant's report supports the approval of the conditional use permit, not its denial, subject to these conditions. In the report, the consultant indicates we've met our burden of proof for the criteria in your ordinance and have provided substantial evidence to support the approval of the application as the conditional use. We believe this is an appropriate site that meets the need of our customers, is consistent with the requirements of the county's ordinance, and accordingly we respectfully request your approval of the conditional use permit subject to these three proposed conditions. I thank you for your attention. I'll be happy to answer any questions any members of the board may have.
Okay, at this time, I'm asking any of the board members if they have any questions for the applicant. Mr. Risher?
I guess this is a question for the consultant, but in the report submitted by Verizon, there's an aerial photograph. It's called Exhibit A1, and I'd like to see if that could be put on the screen.
I believe I have it, Mr. Risher.
I would just like to have people in the audience, see what the surrounding terrain and conditions are.
And the question is? I'm sorry?
I just wanted to have this exhibit put on the board, but could you tell us about how far that this tower is set back from Turner Road?
I'll have to look at the drawing.
It's about 180 to the corner of the lease area.
It's about he's saying about 180 to the corner of the lease area, which would be
Right here, or to the main area, and then another probably.
I guess I can get another set of drawings to answer those questions better so that we can leave that up there.
Well over 200 feet.
200 plus feet from the road.
Okay.
The issue is, for the setback, is this one on this side. This is 32 feet, I believe.
No, it's 32 on the east side.
On the east side.
Okay.
This one's 32 feet in this area here, and this one is the one that's
About 85.
85 feet.
Okay.
He's making the 150 foot to this parcel, the one that's to the, I guess that's the north of this oriented property, right?
Okay, if you could just leave that up there then.
So the setback is for the adjacent properties. Is that a correct statement? Not from the road?
The setback is the property lines, and we meet the setbacks to the north and to the west. Both of those properties are owned by other parties.
So it meets that?
It does not meet the setback requirements with regard to the parcels that Mr. Howell also owns.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant?
Yes, sir. That's typically the standard lease, very much like the gentleman with the previous application noted.
It was 100 by 100 or something. What was?
I believe it's 100 by 100. Might be 80 by 80, but I believe it's 100 by 100.
Okay.
I'd have to look and put on my glasses.
That's okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You may be seated.
Would you like me to leave this up, Mr. Risher?
Okay. So this time we're going to allow 10 minutes for those who want to speak in favor of the case. Okay, I don't see anyone coming up forward. At this time, we would like to allow 10 minutes for those who want to speak in opposition of this case. Please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, my name is Kent Banks. I live at 865 Turner Road, which is the adjoining property on this side over here. I own all of this. I have like 10 acres over there.
Okay.
I have two issues mainly with this. Some was stated by the previous person on the other is the safety. It's true that there is not conclusive evidence that there are health ramifications. Also, there are not conclusive evidence that there are not. there's more and more cases that have, in fact, occurred around these cell towers of unexplained cancer, leukemia, things such as that. The data that I researched shows that they really recommend that towers not be within 1,500 feet of a school with young children or with families that have young children, because a child that, say, is under 5 years old, his brain's not developed, and it's suspected that these waves can affect their development. And the rules of the FCC deal with the power from the radiation that's radiated out, just like with a TV tower, radio tower, any other tower. But they do not in any way deal with long-term exposure. So, but I just bring that out to just say towers in general. That is one concern for me. My second concern is that obviously I own the land right next to it, and there's probably about 3 acres between my house and the property line there. And if I wanted to sell that piece of property, or if I wanted to need one of my children to build a house, but they're not going to build a house with that tower right beside them, and the property is basically worthless. Mr. Howell's property is going to be basically worthless. I'd also like to point out that he didn't pay a penny for that land, that he inherited it, and he inherited it from the same person that I bought mine from. And that person would be very unhappy if he saw what's going on here. And I think this is an opportunity for this board to do the right thing here and deny this request. I'd also like to say that I like Verizon. All my family and all my friends use Verizon. I can give you at least 50 names in my family and close friends that live in this area, and none of us have any problem with Verizon. We have Verizon because it does get out there where AT&T does not, at least in our area, so which some of us used previously, and we've been quite satisfied with that. And my house actually sits off the road down, and the cell phones work perfectly. So I don't want to tie up too much time, but I just think that with the changes they're proposing that they need to make, I don't think it's a good way to go.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition of this case?
Good evening. My name is David Brazel. I live at 127 Darwish Drive. I did get a letter from the attorney regarding the cell phone tower, because I own a piece of property that is not adjacent to Mr. Howell's, but it is within the 1,500 feet that they are required by the county to send out a letter. Just quite simply, I'll make the argument from an economic standpoint. Again, I have this piece of property. It's zoned RA, just like all the property around it. Even though I don't live on it, there's the possibility that one day in the future we may sell our house around the corner and then build a house on it. But again, with a cell phone tower there, I feel the same way Mr. Banks does. My property becomes worthless. If not worthless, greatly diminished. I mean, it really hurts from an investment standpoint, and I don't think that's fair, I mean, I'm okay with somebody doing something, playing by the rules, but not to change it to hurt me personally. So we're in a bind, if you change the rules and this is allowed, what are we going to do? I don't know. I asked my wife if she wanted to ever build a house there, and her response was, it rhymed with sell. No, something like that. So, it's just a tough spot. So I appreciate the opportunity to voice my opposition. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak in opposition of the case? I know we received a letter for those in favor of the case, and I forgot to mention that earlier, staff. So did we have anyone that wrote a letter in favor of the case?
Yes, Madam Chair. We did receive a letter in support from Mr. James W. Howell, who resides at 425 Wilson Drive.
Okay. Any other letters?
We also received correspondence from Mr. Jim Howell, but I do not have an address from him. I do believe Mr. Jim Howell is the owner of the property.
Okay. Thank you. I would like to ask the applicant to please come forward. And at this time, the board is going to ask you questions. So if you'll just hold off your comments until we ask you a question.
Could I correct something for the record?
Yes.
Jim, the property owner is Jeffrey Howell. Jim Howell, as I understand it, is Jeffrey Howell's father and lives across Turner Road.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. At this time, do any of the board members have any further questions for the applicant? Mr. Risher.
I've been told, and I don't know if it's true or not, but that there are some cell phone reception problems that are out towards, I believe, Snapping Shoals Road. Is that what your study shows, that there are some defects in the area?
Is that a question for me, Mr. Risher, or for your consultant?
I think from the consultant, or if you know, that's fine too.
We have the coverage maps, but I'm not intimately familiar with those road names in the area, so it would be hard for me to be honest and answer that question without having it on a detailed map to see their coverage map overlaid on the. We have a printout of it. I guess what I'm saying is it's not detailed enough for me to know the roads.
I'd be happy to show you the coverage map, Mr. Risher, if that would be helpful.
Mr. Risher, do you want to put that up on the screen?
Yes,
So
please.
you can see that.
And also, I have another question, basically about the aesthetics of how this tower is going to look. Is it just going to be a metal pole sticking up in the air, or is there? I've heard of some cases where they can make these what they call camouflage towers to blend in with the vegetation and trees and so forth. Do you know anything about that?
Let me answer your second question first, Mr. Risher. I think you're talking about what we in the industry refer to as a monopine, which is essentially a monopole tower disguised as a pine tree, and that's certainly something that we have employed in other situations. And if it is the desire of this board, we could do so here. As your consultant said, many folks feel that lessens the visual impact. Quite frankly, some people feel it increases it. But if the sentiment of you and of the board is that that would help mitigate the visual impact, that is something that we would be prepared to accept as a condition. And if I may, there are really three types, or at least 2 or 3 types of coverage we're trying to provide with this site. You all have probably seen the ads on television for Verizon's LTE service, the 4th generation or 4G LTE. This is provides faster connection, data connections, those sorts of things. And as you can see in this map here, the gray area. Let me show you where the site is. Roughly here. The darker blue indicates improved service for that particular type of service, the 4G LTE, which is the 700 megahertz service. Then Verizon is also introducing what they call their advanced wireless service. Again, this is brought on by the proliferation of what people call cell phones, but are actually handheld wireless computers with more computing capability than I think what went to the moon, that people carry around on their belts and has a little app for a telephone. But it's a highly sophisticated wireless device that uses a lot of capacity, and this is another way to try to meet that demand. And as you can see by the darker color there, that area is greatly improved with that type of service as well.
At co-locating on any other existing facilities, whether water towers or other
Yes, sir.
towers?
Yes, sir. As is the case with all carriers, it's a lot quicker and a lot cheaper and a lot less effort in terms of the cost of hiring attorneys to attend hearings and those sorts of things to co-locate on an existing tower. Actually, under Georgia law, co-location is essentially the same as getting a building permit. You go in and you provide information that's allowed under the state law, and we've done that on numerous sites here in Henry County over the past couple of years. But eventually you run out of existing towers and water tanks, but you still have people that demand your service, and you still have deficiencies in the service that you need to meet. And that's when you look at building a tower, and they have to be built. They can't just be built anywhere. They have to be built in an area that doesn't overlap service too much with another site, and is not so distant from another site that you still have gaps, because then you're really not doing much at all.
Where is the nearest cell tower to this location? Do you have that, a map of that you could show us, or do you have a little schematic?
Give me just 1 second. I think it was in the radio frequency engineer's report. Yes. There is an existing tower about a little over 1 3/4 mile away to the southeast, right here. It is on the edge of the search area, and the radio frequency engineer did evaluate it. But as you can see, comparing this to this, if we're trying to serve this area here, which is what we're trying to do with this location, if we were to locate on that tower, it would not meet the need. That doesn't mean that at some point in the future Verizon may wish to locate on that tower, but that tower would not provide service where we need it right now.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant from staff? If not, you may be seated. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to call the case.
CU 1402, Jennifer A. Blackburn, as attorney for Verizon Wireless of Atlanta, Georgia, requests a conditional use for property located at 869 Turner Road and land lot 154 of the 1st District. The request is for a new wireless communications facility in the RA Residential Agricultural Zoning District, Commission District 3.
Mr. Risher.
Motion to approve the conditional use with several added conditions. One, that there will be a 150-foot fall easement from the adjacent upon the adjacent properties to the east and south. to approve this antenna or this tower as a camouflaged tower that would blend in with the existing trees and vegetation. The design would have to be approved by county staff at the time of the development permit review.
Have a motion by Mr. Risher. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Babb. Any discussion? All those in favor indicating by raising your hand. All those opposed? Sherry, do I need to state how many opposed?
I was able to count.
Okay.
Thank you.
Motion carried. Sherry, a little housekeeping. Is there any way we can get the air? It's a little cold up here, and I just don't want to start coughing in the microphone. Get to the next case, please.
Variance. DR 1403. Jennifer A. Blackburn, as attorney for Verizon Wireless of Atlanta, Georgia, requests a variance from development regulations for property located at 869 Turner Road in land lot 154 of the 1st District. The request is to reduce the setback requirements for a cell tower, Commission District 3. The request is presented by Chris Monzingo, RCC Consultant.
For the record, once again, I'm Chris Monzingo with RCC Consultants, technical consultant for the county on this application review. Based on the last action, this is almost a moot point now, but we had recommended denial on this variance application based on criteria 7 of your land development code that basically says that variance is not a request to permit a use of land, building, or structure which is not permitted by right in that district. That's exactly what they were requesting, is to get a variance so that they could use the property for something that it's not currently zoned for by its right.
Okay, just stay up here. Does anyone have any questions for the consultant? Okay, we'd like the applicant to please come back forward. Just stay here in case questions are asked.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, for the record, my name is David Kirk with the law firm of Troutman Sanders, representing Verizon Wireless. In light of your previous action, I think I respectfully disagree with your consultant regarding his basis for recommending denial of the variance. I think clearly that criteria number 7 that he refers to is intended to prohibit what we call a use variance. Use variances are things like this board taking action that would allow an office building in a single-family residentially zoned area. Within your county code, you have the authority to grant conditional use permits for cellular towers. It would be an absurd result if you entertain a variance application on a piece of property that is allowed to submit a conditional use permit application if what your consultant says is accurate, and I respectfully disagree with him. The small size of this property, as I think we've talked about previously, prevents Verizon from locating proposed facility in a way that meets the setbacks to all 4 property lines. It meets it with regard to the property to the north and to the west, but does not meet it with regard to the properties that this property owner owns. I think in light of Mr. Risher's motion and the action of this board to approve the conditional use permit subject to a condition that this fall zone easement is put in place, I would respectfully suggest that the variance be approved with that same condition. And the reason for that is really sort of a technical legal one that I talked about with Ms. Hobson Matthews at the very end of the work session, because if you do not grant the variance and still require the fall zone easement, then it's meaningless, because the variance has to do with the legal property lines. So my respectful suggestion, in light of your previous action, which we very much appreciate, would be to approve the variance, again, subject to having that 150-foot radius fall zone easement in place. If we could not get that in place, then we would not have a variance, and we would not be permitted to build the tower. But I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Does the board have any questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
At this time, we're going to allow 10 minutes for those who want to speak in favor of the case. And Sherry, did we have any letters in favor of the variance?
It was just one general letter from the previous request in favor of the towers in general.
Okay, thank you. I didn't see anyone coming forward, so at this time we'll allow 10 minutes for those who want to speak in opposition of the case. No one is coming forward? Okay, I would like to ask the applicant to please come back to the podium. If you don't do anything tonight, you'll get your exercise. How about that?
I walked 3 miles this morning. I'm happy to walk as many miles as you need me to this evening as well.
Are there any other questions for the applicant? Before I ask him to be seated again. Okay, you may be seated.
Thank you.
Okay, call the case.
VR 1402, Jennifer A. Blackburn, as attorney for Verizon Wireless of Atlanta, Georgia, requests a variance from development regulations for property located at 869 Turner Road in land lot 154 of the 1st District. The request is to reduce the setback requirement for a cell tower. Commission District 3.
Motion to deny the variance.
A motion to deny. I have a second. Second. A motion to deny by Mr. Risher, second by Mr. Nelson. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor of the motion indicate by raising your hand. Okay. It's unanimous. Motion carries. Okay, let's call the next case, please.
VR 1401, Falcon Design Consultants, LLC of Stockbridge, Georgia, requests a variance from development regulations for property located at 365 Sonoma Lane in land lot 60 of the 7th District. The request is to reduce the front yard setback, and the property is located in District 3.
And at this time, I would like to say that as Executive Director of the Georgia Utility Contractors Association, that Falcon Design has been a member of our association, and I'm not really sure if they're a member now, but I just want to make it for the record that I personally have no financial interest in this property or this case or connection with this company, Falcon Design. So I just wanted that for the record in case anybody ever said anything or have any questions about that. So let it be for the record. Okay, staff, go ahead.
All right, good evening, Madam Chairman and board members. The request that is before you is a variance request to reduce the front yard setback from 40 feet to 30 feet for a lot in the Wilshire Park subdivision. The address is 365 Sonoma Lane. As you can see from the overhead, it is located here in this cul-de-sac of this newly developed subdivision. Again, the applicant is asking to reduce that front yard setback from 40 feet to 30 feet due to topography issues on the site. As you can see from the site plan that is before you, the topography falls from the north of the site to the south of the site by approximately 10 feet. There's also a 30-foot undisturbed buffer along the eastern property line that the applicant is not allowed to disturb. Therefore, because of the topography and the installation of their proposed retaining wall has required the building to be shifted closer to the street than what the published standards were for this subdivision. Due to those factors due to the fact that the topography is an issue, and due to the fact that there is this buffer requirement that's on this lot, staff has reviewed the request and does recommend approval of the setback reduction. And I'll answer any questions that the board has.
Thank you, Jeremy. At this time, do any of the board members have any questions for Jeremy? And staff, okay. At this time, we'd like the applicant to please come forward.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Alex Mitchum, Falcon Design Group, 235 Corporate Center Drive, Stockbridge. Jeremy's set this up pretty good. I've seen better lots in my day. This one's not an easy one. We've got water coming across the lot right now, and it's getting out into the street and onto the adjoining property. And what we'd like to do is have the ability to go in there and slope or grade, if you will, swell the back of that and take that water onto the detention pond and not cause any more issues. It drops about 10 feet, so we're going to have to use a retaining wall to get that in there. I don't believe moving the house forward is going to cause any type of visual issues or anything like that. It would give some rear yard to this lot, but excuse me, I do know it is an issue with the water right now to some of the residents in there, and we want to get that taken care of. So
Okay.
I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchum. Do any of the board members have any questions for the applicant? Okay, you may be seated. Thank you. At this time, we're going to allow for 10 minutes for those who want to speak in favor of the case. Okay, at this time, we'll also allow 10 minutes for those who want to speak in opposition of the case.
Good evening, Madam Chairman and members of the board.
Good evening.
My name is Dean Wineland. I'm at 4035 Brookdale Court, and I would like to speak in opposition because there's more to this particular request than what has just been explained. For example, on that east side of that property, the water that now comes down from Lake Haven development comes down through that general same area, and that's why that 30-foot natural area was supposed to be left there. Last fall, the builder got permission to move a ditch back behind the area that's supposed to be left natural, and it has, since the rains, has done quite a lot of eroding. And whatever is being done to develop that property, this erosion and the drainage problem that is going toward the other homes that are downhill from this particular lot need to be addressed because it's draining into those people's property and causing erosion on their land. And we would like to have the board request that the appropriate people from the county go down there and see what has to be done to make a permanent correction to the drainage problem that is flooding other properties there, in addition to developing that property to build on. And it is very necessary for the people below there because it's degrading their property, and long after the builder has put a home in there and has gone, the erosion will continue if it's left in the condition that is now being used, to just dig a hole and let the water run so far down there rather than build a concrete drainage all the way to that retention pond, which was built back there to purposely have that water drain to it. There is no facility built at this time to create that kind of drainage to that retention pond, and it must be done. And you people had given them the opportunity to do that. Now we ask you to assure that they will do it. And this is the thing we come in here, not saying we oppose them building a house there. We certainly don't do that. But we want this, in completion of the property there, that the drainage be completed as it was originally intended. And I thank you very much.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak in opposition of the case?
Good evening, the
Good
board.
evening.
My name is David Benoit, and I'm on the property next to it. The property is my address is 369 Sonoma Lane, and I'm directly below that property there. And I'm coming forward to not to be in opposition of them building a home, which we would love to have another home there. But since I've been there in September, I've told that the problem was taken care of. But the last few months, even after watching all the rain come through, I've actually seen the degrading from the property, and the water's coming down and even coming onto my property. And I would just really like to request for the board to send the county engineers or someone to make sure that this problem is taken care of before the board allows them to let this house be built. So that's how I would like to voice my opinion, and thanks for.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else like to speak in opposition of the case? Okay, at this time we need the applicant to come forward. Do the board members have any further questions for the applicant? Mr. Risher?
Yes, sir. What is your response to the statements that we've just heard from the residents, and what do you see as the solution jointly with county staff?
Absolutely. We totally concur with that. We want to make sure the solution that we offer, that the parties agree to, the county, the engineers, they see it, the way we see it. Right now, that lot in this area is as bad as it can possibly look. I mean, there's no, there is some silt fence on the site, but it's been there for quite some time. And it needs to be, this lot needs to get stabilized, and we need to turn that water so it's not going onto the gentleman's property here with respect, and I apologize. I hate that he's having to deal with that. But some of this stuff was done a little bit before our time. We're trying to correct the issues that were done before we started assisting this builder. But that is exactly right. We'll work with staff to make sure that the proper solution is found here, so they don't have to deal with this anymore.
Is that what the retaining wall is supposed to help take care of?
It does. It gives us the ability to go in there and grade in there, properly swell this area. That's the first solution that we came up with. Plus, it gives some rear yard, some type of usability for this. We would have liked to have just gone with the footprint we have and just went for the 4 feet that we are allowed administratively, but it just doesn't make sense. We couldn't get in there and do the work that needs to be done to take care of this properly. So that's why we're requesting the additional encroachment or setback moving there. But we believe we can take care of this issue, and once it gets stabilized, they won't have any more problems.
I guess the comment that I have is, it sounds like they're in favor of you coming in and helping the property, so I would think they would be in favor of the variance, which is going to hopefully correct this problem. But
Correct.
My question is, if the fence that's supposed to be up to help with that runoff,
Mm-hmm.
if it needs to be corrected, I just wonder why the county soil and water hasn't addressed that issue before they had to before this came, because that really, I don't think, has anything to do with the variance, the water runoff and the problem there. Sherry, is this the first you've heard of that?
This is the first that I've heard that there's been some runoff issues. I will tell you, when we went out to the site last week, I did come back and speak with the department director and just indicated that I thought the lot needed to be cleaned up, just because a lot of the weeds, there's some bricks that are thrown on the site, and it looked like it had just been overgrown. It was my understanding from the department head that a correction notice had been issued to the builder. So it sounds like we just need to, we being the county, needs to follow back up, one, with the builder to make sure that lot does get stabilized, but two, if there are some drainage issues, we need to make sure, and I'll make sure that I make contact with both of the gentlemen that spoke tonight, so that the county can give you their assurances that we'll get someone out there to take a look at whatever's going on. Certainly don't want to put it as a condition on this application because we want to try to make sure that we come up with a solution before anything happens with this lot here. So what I will do is get your contact name and number, and I'll make sure that I get the Environmental Compliance Department head to come out and find out what's going on.
And we'll follow up with a phone call in the morning as well to our builder.
Thank you.
No problem.
I just wanted everyone to know that whether you had this variance or not, there's water issues out there that need to be taken care of. So I just want to make sure everybody understood that. Mr. Dillon,
yes,
Nelson.
I have one question. Based on the map that's on the screen there, can you point out where that retaining wall will actually? Okay, and that's designed to actually route the water to the retention pond.
That's to help get the home in there first of all, give us a buildable, a pad to put it on.
Okay.
And then, give some type of a flat yard, if you will. And then on top of that retaining wall will be where the swell or whatever drainage structure we deem is necessary to handle the water. That's where that will go. And of course, we'll re-landscape and plant and that sort of thing that needs to be done.
Now, are you aware of any runoff that's not going to the retention pond at this point?
I don't think I understand the question or aware. I know there's issues with the water coming onto our lot currently. It's not being directed accordingly. That's what this is trying to take care of.
Right, exactly.
Twofold, really.
Okay. So once you're finished, this should take care of all of the problems that the resident are concerned with now.
Yes, sir. We feel confident that's what's going to happen. Yes, sir.
Mr. Risher.
Should the drainage structures and the retention walls, should that be installed first before the house construction is started?
Yes, sir. It will be permitted. We'll have to submit structural plans to the county for review. Those will have to be approved first, and then yes, the grading and the wall will have to go in. It will be done all kind of the same time, if you will, but the wall and all that stuff will have to be approved before we feel confident in making sure we and start constructing the home.
And one other question. And what's the plans for the construction of that wall? What type of material?
At this point, I can't speak to that now. Probably some type of a modular wall would be my guess. We're not structural engineers. We're civil, but we would defer to them to tell us what the proper wall would be. Is it a modular wall? Is it a poured-in-place wall? We'll defer to them to give us the best scenario.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board members for applicant? Any other questions from the board members for applicant? You may be seated.
Thank you.
We can't. No, this is comment period's over. Sorry. Call for the case.
VR 1401 Falcon Design Consultants, LLC of Stockbridge, Georgia, requests a variance from development regulations for property located at 365 Sonoma Lane in land lot 60 of the 7th District. The request is to reduce the front yard setback, and the property is located in District 3.
Motion to approve the variance. I believe there is practical difficulty with building a house on this property. So I think the variance is warranted. I would only ask that the drainage issues discussed tonight be followed up with by the staff.
Have a motion.
Second.
Second by Mr. Babb. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion carried. Next case.
VR 1403, Mike Criswell of McDonough, Georgia, requests a variance from development regulations for property located at 2109 Jonesboro Road in land lot 110 of the 6th District. The request is to reduce the front yard setback, and the property is located in District 2. Jeremy Gilbert will be representing planning staff.
Good evening again, Chairman and board members. The request that is before you is a request to reduce the front yard setback for property located at 2109 Jonesboro Road. It is the current location of the firehouse subs. As you can see here on the site plan, it was an existing building that was on site. The applicant did submit building permit application to our building department to do interior renovations. However, after the certificate of occupancy was issued, the applicant constructed an awning in this hatched area here over the existing outdoor patio. As you can see from the photos that are attached, the awning is currently there at the location, and it extends into the setback by 17 feet. Therefore, the applicant is asking to reduce that front yard setback from 50 feet to 33 feet to be able to allow this structure to remain. Tonight during our work session, it was presented to us a conceptual plan from our DOT department that Georgia DOT is doing a road improvement along Jonesboro Road, widening out Jonesboro Road to a 4-lane. And as you can see here, based on their concept plan, they will be looking to acquire additional property here in front of this building, which based on this proposed plan would take the entire awning that is currently there by a new proposed right-of-way. Maybe not necessarily roadway, but would be additional right-of-way that would be acquired. Based on all of the information provided and based on the fact that there's no hardships, planning staff did recommend denial of this request. I'll answer any questions the board may have.
Do any board members have any questions for Mr. Gilbert? Okay, we'll ask the applicant to please come forward. Please state your name.
My name is Zach Graham. I am here representing Mike Criswell for Firehouse Subs at 2109 Jonesboro Road. And I'm here simply to state that we constructed a awning on top of an existing concrete slab that came with the purchase of the building. And we're just under the understanding that adding an awning, metal railing, would be within the permits applied for.
Okay, do the board members have any questions for the applicant?
I do. You indicate that it would be permitted?
Well, the concrete slab was there and was part of the building purchased, and we added an awning to it to add additional, to have a eye catcher from the side of the road since there's a constant traffic block.
Okay.
And as part of the building, we assumed it was ours, and with the permits applied for, would be allowed to construct an awning for an outside seating area to allow for more seating.
So was that awning a part of that permit?
No, that was constructed after the building was already operational and after we had already had opening business.
So the awning was never applied to the permit?
They're not the standing awning as it is now. There was simply a green awning just hanging out over the patio, and all we did was add the metal rails and then a awning that extended the entire length of the concrete slab.
Okay.
Basically to enforce a heating for the winter, just a comfortable seating area to apply for more guests.
Okay, so I have a question. So you're saying that there was a concrete slab and then there was an awning already on there, but it just was not connected to the slab part?
Right. There were two green awnings attached over the windows.
Over the windows?
Onto the building.
Not the patio?
It was not attached to the ground or the slab.
But it wasn't over the patio?
Not entirely.
Okay.
Just covering a section of it attached to the building.
So when you installed this cover on the patio, did you pull a building permit?
I am not positive who. My owner, Mike Criswell, has contact with the company. I was just sent here because he has had a surgery and cannot make it. All I know is he was in contact with them and them only, and they spoke with each other. And it was assumed when they started building that all the permits were in place.
Okay, I just want to make sure you understand that you
Yes.
added a structure
Yes, we added a
that,
structure
right?
to
And
it,
it's a little
right.
bit different from having an awning over a window when you add a structure.
Right.
And you have poles and that sort of thing. So, okay. And it was my understanding that a permit was not pulled. Is that correct, Jeremy?
That's correct. And it may be a little difficult to see on the overhead, but if you have these pictures in your book, if you look at this lower picture here, one of the green awnings is still connected to the building here. And our ordinance does have a provision that allows for awnings to extend within a certain distance, and it's within just a couple of feet. And from the visual of that, that's just a couple of feet off of the building that would cover just a window for aesthetic purposes.
Do board members have any other questions for the applicant or staff? Okay, thank you. You may be seated. Is there anyone that would like to speak in favor of the case? We'll allow 10 minutes for those who would like to speak in favor of the case. And seeing no one come up, is there anyone want to speak in opposition of the case? Okay, I would like to ask the applicant to please come forward. Does anyone on the board have any questions for the applicant? Any other comments or anything? Okay, you may be seated. Jeremy, who's going to call the case?
DR 1403, Mike Criswell of McDonough, Georgia, requests a variance from development regulations for property located at 2109 Jonesboro Road in Land Lot 110 of the 6th District. The request is to reduce the front yard setback. It's in Commission District 2.
I make a motion to support the staff recommendation to deny the request for a variance from development regulations for the property located at 2109 Jonesboro Road. I think a good reason for this is the applicant proceeded with construction in addition without the building plan approval or permit.
We have a motion to deny this variance. Do I have a second? Is that Mr. Risher? Okay. Second by Mr. Risher. All those in any discussion? All those in favor indicate by raising your hand. Okay. Motion carried. Next case, please.
Rezonings, RZ 1401, Meredith Homes of McDonough, Georgia, requests a rezoning from RA Residential Agricultural to R3 Single Family Residential for property located at 354 Wilson Road in land lots 114 and 143 of the 7th District. The property consists of 11.683 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a single-family residential subdivision. The property is located in District 3, and Jeremy Gilbert is representing planning staff.
Good evening again, Chairman and board members. The request that is before you is a request to rezone the subject property from RA to R3 for the development of a single-family residential subdivision consisting of approximately 19 lots. The property is designated as low-density residential with up to 2.0 dwelling units per acre, according to our future land use map. The applicant is proposing 19 lots with a minimum lot size of 18,000 square feet on public sewer, with a net density not to exceed 2.0 dwelling units per acre. According to the applicant's letter of intent, they are proposing to develop the subdivision in accordance with the R3 development standards outlined in the Unified Land Development Code. As you can see here on the overhead, the property that is in question is the hatched area here, and its relation to the surrounding area of what is in the area. There are some R3 subdivisions currently in the area. There are some R1 and some R2 developments in the area, as well as some RA residential agricultural areas. Planning staff has reviewed this request and did receive a letter from the Water Authority stating that water and sewer services are available to the subject property at the expense of the developer extending the sewer line and the water line to the subject property. We also received correspondence from the Henry County Board of Education that stated the proposed development would generate approximately 38 students for the Ola High School, middle school, and elementary school collectively. Also, according to their correspondence, the result in these additional students would not require additional classrooms, but would be absorbed into the current facilities. Based on staff's review of its compliance with the development standards for an R3 development, as well as the future land use maps designation of low-density residential, planning staff did recommend approval of this request with 9 zoning conditions.
Okay, do any of the board members have any questions for staff at this time? Okay, if the applicant will please come forward. And state your name and if you have anything, any additional information for the board.
Good evening, Madam Chair. My name is Michael Elliott. I'm president and owner of Metro Engineering in McDonough, Georgia. I also reside at 180 Gentry Drive, McDonough, Georgia. Thank you for having me here tonight. I'll be brief. The hour's getting late. I'm not going to regurgitate what staff Jeremy just told you. I'm here tonight to represent Meredith Homes of McDonough, Georgia. My client's here tonight. He's a locally owned and operated business here in Henry County. He's currently building homes in the Eagle Brick subdivision. Not one of the larger tract builders. He's a local boy that's just trying to develop and build homes here. This particular piece of property, my client does live in the Lake Dow area. He drives by this property twice a day as he's taking his children to Ola Elementary School. Again, I've read the report. I agree with staff. Y'all set a set of guidelines for us to go by. I've heard a phrase here tonight from someone in the audience, we're playing by the rules. We are playing by the rules. Y'all spent numerous years and many a man-hour to develop the Unified Land Development Code, a future land use map for the year 2030. We comply with that to the letter, and your staff report reflects that. Y'all all have read that. I'm not going to regurgitate it to you. I think tonight in the workshop meeting, it was brought to our attention that only one of the criteria points of the zoning evaluation that staff does is compliance with the future land use map. Yes, there are 8, and we comply with each and every one of them. Absolutely. Have I developed property in this portion of Henry County? Yes, ma'am, I have, for the last 10 or 12 years. There's been discussion of compromise to go to an R2. Everyone needs to understand that the R2 that we developed 10 years ago is the same R3 that I'm presenting here tonight. It's just the nomenclature that has been just reintroduced with the development of the ULDC. Also in the workshop meeting, they were talking about the R3 that's just down the street. It's across the street, the Canterbury Hills subdivision. Also, it's not a compromise to go to R2 because that would take us to 30,000 square foot lots, where we're at 18,000 right now on sewer. Another consideration that we need to think about from a land development standpoint is we don't have the ability, as in the old code, to go to an R2 on sewer without reducing the lot size, whereas we could at 18,000 square feet, where we did at Hickory Hills, where we did at other places that we've done it through on the eastern side of District 3. Also, as far as Mr. Gilbert brought up the fact, we are 65 feet away from a public sewer. By state law, we cannot put them on septic tanks. We must tap into the sewer. So we'd be the first subdivision in Henry County to be 3/4 of an acre on on a sewer system. I guarantee you that. So that's impractical. The staff brought up that there would be 13 or 14 lots, I believe is what Mr. Gilbert said in workshop if we went to an R2. I'd love to see that layout because mine says 8 or 9, okay? Again, that's just not practical. So rather than let's getting hung up on what the lot size is, let's get hung up on what we're going to put on the lot, okay? The staff has laid out 9 conditions that we're favorable with. But here's what my client's willing to do. And you have to understand, we're not just going to build a street and leave and sell it to a tract builder. He's going to build the homes when he's done. We're currently, by code, going with an 1,800 square foot minimum. That's what's allowed by code. That's what people are doing around us. We're going to go to a 2,200 square foot minimum which is 25% more than code minimum. So yeah, we're staying in the box, and we're making the box bigger. We're agreeing to go to all brick and stone on 4 sides, no stucco. We're going to do hardy plank accents on the gables and the accents, vinyl siding on the fascias and the soffits like everybody else does. What we're looking at is a price range of $220,000 to $300,000 homes. Currently, there is a home that sits on there. It will be demolished. From a tax revenue standpoint, we're talking about putting almost $5 million worth of real estate on one piece of property. Yes, 19 lots on 12 acres, but we comply with every guideline that it took 10 years for the county to adopt a new land use code. As far as there was discussion in the workshop meeting, yeah, there's the landscape requirements that were done in there. That's one thing. And what's along Wilson Road, along that particular corridor, there's nothing there now. We will put a 4-foot-high landscape berm across the frontage of the property. We'll put a split rail fence across the property, and we'll put canopy trees upon the property so long as it doesn't interfere with the intersection sight distance. So we don't want a ticker tape parade here, but we know we got to live, work, and play in this community. And I'm not going to take away from the opposition, because I guarantee you they're here tonight. And we're going to hear things about the rural character of Henry County. We're going to hear a lot about that. My client's family and mine alone have a 250-year investment in this community. That ship has sailed. People are going to continue to build homes. What is everything on this agenda tonight is about residential construction. The rural way of life of Henry County that Brian and I grew up with is gone. But we contend to stay, live, and work and play in this community. We're not like a lot of people that come into this community, and when we leave work at night, when we go home, we don't cross a county line. We stay here. We go to church here. We raise our families here. We invest in this community. Now, I don't know what else my client can do. Y'all set guidelines, we follow them. We're going above them. This may be a first for the first zoning I've ever done in 20 years that I'm actually agreeing with staff. I'm sure Ms. Matthews will tell you that. And we're doing above and beyond. So with that, I'll entertain any questions, and I'll reserve what time I have left to rebut.
Okay.
So thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you. Stay here. We can't ask you questions if you leave.
Oh, okay.
Okay, do any of the board members have any questions for the applicant? I don't think they have any questions for you at this time. You may be seated. Okay, we're going to allow 10 minutes for those who want to speak in favor of the case. All right, and we're going to allow, so noted that no one is coming up. And we're going to allow 10 minutes for those who want to speak in opposition of the case.
Yes, Madam Chairman, board members, I'm John Smith. I live at 773 Hewitt Drive in the Lakedown subdivision, Lakedown North. And I went out and saw this property this week, and you're 700 yards. The entrance of this new subdivision is going to be 700 yards from Lakedown North. And those lots certainly are not R3. You go just to the east of where these are going to be, you've got a $1 million property there. I don't know who lives there, but a huge, beautiful house. Just the next house on Wilson Road past this one that's going to be developed. And go just across the street, there is a Canterbury, I believe you called it, a Canterbury subdivision that has become nothing more than a trash dump. I rode through there. The streets are in there. Apparently the underground utilities are in place. It's just pipes sticking up everywhere. And people have dumped mattresses, bathtubs, furniture. They've even stolen the brass out of the fire hydrants in there, probably, I guess, for scrap metal. And so I called the commissioner, and I said, would you please get somebody to chain that thing off? That's a danger in there. When that subdivision, in one day, the one I'm talking about, this Canterbury, when it gets developed, now how many kids is that going to put on Ola? See, so the 30-something kids at this subdivision will produce expectedly for OLA. That's nothing like what this thing is going to do. So you're looking at several problems, and in one day that thing will be developed. So I just think it's ridiculous to start going from RA to R3. I realize that this Unified Land Code and so forth, that don't make it right, but it was done not by you folks, but by previous boards. Previous boards of commissioners, allowed this type stuff. And I have no problem if in city limits somewhere where they want to have R3 homes, but out there in our area, I definitely am against changing from R8 to R3. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to come and speak in opposition of the case?
Banks. I live on Turner Road, 865. I'm not going to address directly the subdivision itself. I'm going to let others speak with that. But my problem there, and it would be worth your time to come out there right prior to school starting and right after it's out. That road is a narrow, two-lane road, and there's a tremendously sharp curve right in front of where the entrance to this subdivision is going to be. There's already been major accidents on that road. There's been several kids hurt up near where you turn onto Turner Road. The road drifts, and it's not really, and the kids speed down through there. But in the mornings, you can't, being as rural as that is, you can't even get out of Turner Road onto Wilson Drive because everybody, taking the kids to school. I think they ought to consider before allowing any more construction as far as housing on that road, that infrastructure be adjusted to accept the additional traffic. And he's correct in, you're talking, I think there's something like 85 homes going in that new subdivision over there, something like that. Maybe that's not right. But anyway, with that and these together and all of these, that impact on that little road, we're all going to suffer from that. It's going to be very dangerous. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak in opposition of the case?
My name's Joe Archer. I live at 775 Turner Road.
Okay, can I ask you stated your name on the way up, so if you just...
Oh, okay. My name is Joe Archer. We live at 775 Turner Road. We've been there for about 20 years now. And, the traffic situation getting off of Turner and to turn onto Wilson Road is terrible. I mean, especially when school starts. Not only do you have the new subdivision that they're talking about across the street that's going to be developed, this one's coming in here. You've got everybody over on the Lake Dow area that comes right down Wilson, going to North Ola Road to get to the schools. They're running, over the speed limit to get the kids there. We can't even hardly get out of our street. I have to go the back way out up Church and then over to McGarity Road, where normally, if school's not in session, I don't have a problem. But the schools eventually are going to end up just like Clayton County. You're going to have trailers sitting out there, and everybody's going to be scratching their head. I wonder what happened. Well, that's what's happening. We've got everybody up and down over where I live has got, nice houses. They're on 5 to 6 to 10 acre tracts of land. And, we pay our taxes. We pay a fair amount of tax. And I just don't understand going from R to R3, and that little tract of land that they're putting all those houses on, I think is like 11 acres or a tad over 11 acres. 19 houses, 11 acres, 19 lots. Are you're going to be able to just stand in the house and spit out the window and hit your neighbor? Is that what it's going to get to? That's not why I moved to Henry County. And that's why a lot of people are here. They like the ruralness of the area and, everything about Henry County. And, we moved from Clayton County to get here, and now everybody in Clayton County's moved down here. So, it's just going to overwhelm everything if all this sort of stuff keeps up down here. And that's all I've got to say.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Anyone else would like to speak in opposition?
I received 2 letters in opposition.
Okay. For the record, we have 2 letters that was received in opposition. Are you here to speak in opposition of the case?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Okay.
This is actually the real reason I'm here, or another reason. Good evening again, Madam Chairperson, Board. My name is David Brazel. I live at 127 Darwish Drive. It isn't a subdivision. It's in Lake Dow. It happens to be on 1.8 acres. It happens to be on septic tank. Apparently that's a crazy notion these days. But I'd also like to make everyone aware that we have considerable investments in other properties on Wilson Drive. I also happen to own about 11 acres and beyond. And I'm concerned with this development and this rezoning because I feel like it's going to hurt my investment. Again, I think I said this earlier, in the long run. We invested in our neighborhood when it was at RA. I think the gentleman used something I said about playing by the rules, but I feel like he's changing the rules, actually, because it is RA, and he wants to change it to R3. I truly believe that that kind of density is going to hurt the school, even though I respect what the school board has said. But I think anything that hurts the school not only hurts that street, Lake Dow neighborhood, the farm neighborhood, our road, but it hurts every home, even if it's a mile away. If it's a home that's part of the Ola School District, you know, that can hurt some people. I mean, if somebody's house drops $20,000 because we make bad decisions or put bad precedents on how we're going to develop, some people can't handle that kind of drop. And again, I think I mentioned this earlier. It also puts those of us who own a good bit of land around, it puts us in a bind because, you know, we're there for RA. If you put something that's different and undesirable up, you know, we get stuck. Then what do we have to do? Then the guys who are here trying to champion a nice product, and I don't want to say that it's not nice, but you understand what I'm getting at. It's just very difficult, you know, in the long run. He claims that they're going to have $200,000, $300,000 houses. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. But on that density, I just don't feel like it can generate. At that density, honestly, you'd have to have a $400,000 or $500,000 house to generate enough tax revenue to actually pay for what's going on out there. There is the subdivision across the street. Everybody loves to talk about it. It was a bad decision. I guess it's in bankruptcy. I don't know what's going on with. Well, I do, but it's not for this discussion. And there was something about the ship. Well, I truly feel it's time to turn the ship around, head in a new direction. I'll make a statement about septic tanks. Okay. Thank you for your time. I appreciate that.
Comments. All right. We'd like the applicant to please come forward.
And Madam Chair, while the applicant is coming forward, we did also receive 2 other letters in opposition. One was from a Kathy and Ken Siebel. Apparently they live along Wilson Road. They did not provide an address. And then we also received a letter from Tommy Victor, who lives at 411 Turner Road, who is also in opposition. And I would like to enter those as part of the record.
Thank you, Ms. Matthews. Does the board have any questions for the applicant at this time? No questions for the applicant?
Can I use some of my, Madam Chair, may I use some of my time that I had left over for a couple of statements?
You weren't timed, and
I thought I got 10 minutes just like the opposition.
Well, you could have come up during the 10-minute period.
I actually reserved the right to rebut the time I had left for rebuttal. I did didn't I?
Ms. Matthews, I need a staff recommendation.
Yes, the applicant certainly has as much time that's allowed for his presentation, and then there's 10 minutes for those wanting to speak in favor and 10 for those wanting to speak in opposition. I don't think anyone came up in favor, so then he would still have 10 minutes to speak
So
in
he
favor.
wants to.
I'm not going to take up the 10 minutes, I promise you, Madam
Thank
Chair.
you.
Okay, and then,
maybe
just a
about
second,
two.
hold on, this is just a housekeeping thing, so hold on just a second. So then after that, we'll ask if, we'll ask if there's any questions from the board for the applicant? Okay.
That's certainly fine. If he wants to offer comments in support of, he can certainly do that with 10 minutes. And then
Okay.
you can ask questions of him as the applicant.
Okay, during that time?
After that time.
Okay, after
Yes,
that time.
ma'am.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're doing the right thing. Okay, you have 10 minutes then.
Okay. I'm going to take two, I promise. You can time me. It'll be the fastest thing
Well, there's a
ever.
clock right up there, so
I got you.
everybody be watching you.
Madam Chair, we're not changing the rules. We didn't make them. We're just obeying them, okay? My grandfather taught me you can disagree with someone without being disagreeable. So we'll be here till midnight. This discussion in Henry County is going to go on long after tonight, and we all realize that, and there's tough decisions to make. People didn't want the farm when Kerry Bunn developed Turner Road, and he developed the farm subdivision in '85. They didn't want it when Ed and Harold McGarity did Lake Dow either. My client's building 19 lots. There's a lot of discussion about Canterbury. I'm not here to discuss Mr. Jones's project across the street. We're trying to make an investment in this community. So, you know, what may be undesirable to someone, that's a subjective term. But we've just proved to you that we're going to go above and beyond what the code calls for, and what even the code calls for, the staff recommended above and beyond, and we're going above and beyond that. I think that's a rarity at this podium from an applicant to develop a subdivision in Henry County. So with that said, I'll entertain any questions. That was 1 minute and 45. Okay, got it.
Okay. Okay, does any of the board members have any questions for the applicant? I don't think they do. You may be seated.
Thank you.
We call the case.
RZ 1401, Meredith Homes of McDonough, Georgia, requests a rezoning from RA Residential Agricultural to R3 Single Family Residential for property located at 354 Wilson Road in land lots 114 and 143 of the 7th District. The property consists of 11.683 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a single family residential subdivision. The property is located in District 3.
Motion for denial of the request.
I have a motion for denial by Mr. Risher. Do I have a second? I have a second by Mr. Head. Any discussion?
Mr. Richard, would you state your reasons why you're denying?
I think there's, just a conflict with the surrounding land uses in the area based on the criteria that are in our ordinance for consideration of making zoning decisions.
Any other discussion? I have a motion. I have a second. No more discussion. All in favor of the motion indicate by raising your hand. Any denied? Any nays? Okay, you got that. Motion carried. Next case, please.
RZ 1403, JHJ 180 Henry LLC of Stockbridge, Georgia, requests a rezoning from RA Residential Agricultural to R3 Single Family Residential for property located on the east and western sides of Mill Road, south of Mount Carmel Road in land lots 143 and 146 of the 6th District. The property consists of 123.13 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a single-family residential subdivision. The property is located in District 2, and Jeremy Gilbert is representing planning staff.
Good evening again, Madam Chairman and board members. The request that is before you is a rezoning request for property located on the east and west sides of Mill Road south of Mount Carmel Road. Property is currently zoned RA, as you can see from the zoning map that is on the overhead, and the applicant is requesting to rezone this property to R3, single-family residential. Future land use map does designate the property for future low-density residential with a net density of up to 2.0 dwelling units per acre. The applicant is proposing 145 lots at 1.91 plus or minus units per acre for net density. As you can see, I've provided a copy of the proposed site plan. The applicant is proposing, in essence, 3 developments there along the road. The property to the north and those to the south would be dissected there by a creek that is existing on the subject property. The applicant is requesting to go to an 18,000 square foot lot on public sewer. We did receive a letter from the Water Authority that states that water and sewer is in the area and can be made available to this property by way of a line extension at the expense of the developer. Also, we did receive correspondence from the school board in regards to this development. It says that the proposed development would generate an estimated additional 290 students for Luella High, Luella Middle, and Oakland Elementary schools collectively. Also, according to their information, the additional students would not result in the need for additional classrooms. They would be absorbed into the current facilities. Also, based on staff's review of the request and its consistency with the future land use map, staff did recommend approval of the R3 with 15 conditions. I'd like to also add a 16th condition that we discussed while we were in the workshop. That was some comments from our Department of Transportation. There was a request that came to the Zoning Advisory Board on 7/8/2013 for an assisted living facility to be located here. One of the conditions required a traffic study. DOT is asking that we add this as a 16th condition. Prior to the final plat approval, the developer or the applicant shall be required to design, acquire applicable right-of-ways and easements, relocate utilities, and construct the improvements to DOT standards as determined by a traffic study that was required in condition number 8 of CU 1309, resolution number 13-15-ZAB from 7/8/2013. We'll entertain any questions that the board may have at this time.
Do any board members have any questions for staff regarding this case? The 16th condition, Jeremy, what was that one more time? Just that a traffic study be offered?
It's prior to the developer getting final plat approval for this, if it were to be approved, that they would do the necessary improvements based on the traffic study that was required by the other development. Just ensuring that whatever that traffic study says needs to be done is done before they build anything on this property.
Okay. And Sherry, do I need to repeat that I have no vested interest in this property since Falcon Design is doing, okay.
That's fine.
But I still don't have any vested interest in this property. It's when you know people, it's just hard, yeah. I just want to make sure everybody knows there's no ethical conflict going on here. Okay, would you like to add anything to staff's comments?
Sure. Alex Mitchell, Consultants, 235 Corporate Center Drive, Stockbridge. I don't get paid by the word, so I'll cut to the chase on this. Staff has done a good job setting this thing up. Condition 16, that seems reasonable. That's something we were prepared to do anyway. We do have just one issue here. First of all, we do comply with all the criteria set forth, so we feel very good about that. In areas that we meet, where most of the time we're going to exceed the criteria. Condition 3 reads, minimum lot size for lots north of the creek, 18,000 square feet minimum lot size. For all lots south of the creek, I guess Variance here. Be this area. That being south, those lots, staff has recommended 22,000. We would respectfully request that we can maintain those 18,000 square foot for consistency purposes. Also, there are a lot of infrastructure improvements that we plan to do from this, and that would assist us in being able to do those. Also, there's an opportunity here for us to partner with the county. My understanding, this before my time, but my understanding was that there were some discussions with the land use change about a roundabout at Mount Carmel Mill Road. Well, that did make it on the SPLOST, and it's a Tier 1. My client is willing to do some of the heavy lifting on that. In fact, he's directed us to start looking at doing the design, and he's willing to fit the bill there. Also, he controls a lot of the land through here that right-of-way will need to be acquired. He's willing to put that forth, so that would save the constituents of Henry County some money there. All that being said, this could be expedited as well. There's problems out there. There's challenges today. He's willing to go ahead. Let's push this thing along. Let's work together and get this done before all the other stuff is concerned. Now, we're moving forward with this project. We hope to go to design here soon. There's one note I did want to make. There is a rec area it's shown. I know during a work session it was said that there wasn't one. There's one right here, and that would meet the requirements as well under the ULDC. So, like I said, I'll reserve the rest of my time for rebuttal if I need it, but I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions from the board for the applicant? I have a couple of questions, if I may.
Sure.
You just heard the other case. I'm sure folks are really concerned about traffic.
Yes, ma'am.
Especially on Mill Road. You heard in the staff meeting, I'm sure, with the board. And they're going to do this study. And I'm not really sure what's going to come of that. And I guess maybe this is for DOT. So what happens if that comes back? Is it like a negative thing? Explain to us what could happen, and then are they responsible for fixing the roads, or what? How does that work?
Condition that Jeremy had read in that number 16 was for them to do the intersection improvement at Mount Carmel per the traffic study that was from the July 13 ZAB on the daycare and the assisted living. So that would probably be the biggest traffic improvement there, is improving that Mount Carmel intersection.
Okay, so the traffic study, though, that was for the daycare and the other development, but would this case add an additional to that? I mean, does that make sense?
Their traffic study, they went ahead and did it including these residential lots that are proposed that you're hearing tonight.
Okay, so that's
they did it for the assisted living, the daycare, and roughly 145 homes.
Okay.
Which represents what you see tonight.
Right. And also, I think it's a concern of this board and the citizens, as you heard earlier in a different case. They are concerned about houses and what they look like and what's going on in Henry County and things like this. And I think the staff, in trying to address that and trying to address the fact that when you go into these subdivisions that all the houses look the same, and it's just, sometimes it just creates something that's not as pretty as we want it to be, so to speak. And of course, beauty's in the eye of the beholder, and we all understand that. But I think that number 3 that they have put on that as a condition, I think, I'm not going to speak for staff, but maybe they can explain to you why they wanted that to happen and why we as the board might agree with that as a condition to move forward with this.
Okay. Can I make a point on that note? Is that a question or?
Well, I guess
okay.
I was going to ask staff to maybe explain why they did that, and then you can.
Absolutely.
Then the question would be back to you. What do you think about that?
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, one of the things that we looked at as staff when we looked at the properties that were north of the creek and those that were south of the creek, in the staff report, we referenced the surrounding developments and how some of those developments, the lot sizes and things of that nature. And most of those that were 18,000 square foot lots and those that, where was one development had some lots that are 12,000 square feet in this area, were all north up at the intersection and along Mount Carmel Road. So we thought to allow a transition as it's going into a more rural area along Mill Road, as you're entering in toward where the church is and as you're headed toward 81, there's not any more residential subdivisions through there that are small lot developments. So we felt if we would ramp up the size that it would be a transition of lot sizes moving from a consistent lot size of 18,000 into a larger lot size there at the 22,000 was our thought process behind that.
I thought that was a good idea, and I kind of like that.
Sure. And you know, as a planner, I could sit here and we could probably debate and we could agree to disagree, or you know, most things would be all kumbaya. But that's the way planners are. I would suggest maybe let's look at the architectural treatments. Let's try to stipulate some different type of style homes or something like that. Give it a different look. That way, everything doesn't look the same or have a mixture. Or you know, maybe so the creek being the boundary line, let's make Mill Road, you know, those to the east of it, make those 18,000, and to the west, you know, maybe we can do 22,000 there, or some type of mixture. It's really, when we're looking at a density, I mean, we're still below the 2 unit per acre net. I mean, when we say plus or minus, you know, this is a rezoning plan. We still have to do some more engineering on this. You know, there will be some lots in there. I'm sure that will be a challenge from time to time. I think it's a very good layout. I think our engineers did a great job. However, that's kind of the nature of the game, I should say. So once we get into this thing, it's going to be below 2 units per acre, you know, by the code, and it may even be less. But we're just looking to you know, let's get a positive recommendation from tonight, or we're asking for approval so we can go on to the next phase, and maybe we can work something out there too. Again, we're looking to be a partner with the county as well as the traffic concerns, because your concerns are our concerns too, because we're going to have a project here. My company, our employees, they live and work here as well, and they travel this road, so we're sensitive about that as well.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have any comments for the applicant? Okay, you may be seated.
Thank you very much.
You. At this time, we're going to call for anyone who wants to speak in favor of the case. And I guess, Sherry, from now on, I need to say that includes the applicant. Do you want to give 10 more minutes of? Okay, anyone speaking in opposition of the case?
Madam Chairman, while they're on their way up, I'd like to also note that we did receive an email this afternoon from a George Nicholas who was in opposition to this request. Wanted to enter that into the record.
Okay, thank you. Good evening.
My name is Chris Schaefer, 680 North Oakland Circle. I've been a resident here over 20 years. I travel up and down Mill Road twice a day. It wasn't that long ago. That was just a country road. Big storm came through, wiped out the bridge. Henry County put a nice new bridge in there. People started finding out the nice cut through. Then they built Target and all the other stores over there and Walmart. And people found out that when the interstate is blocked up, it's a great little cut through. Every day, traffic gets backed up. On the weekends, that little bridge where the creek is, traffic going south, it's from there all the way to 81. There's no light there. It's very bad. There's been a lot of accidents there. You add 150 more cars minimum with that many houses on there, and they're going to be traveling up in that road going to Oakland Elementary, which is in that direction, which is already full. I'm not 100% sure that is correct, if they would be going there, Luella, Dutchtown. Some of those, the lines have changed quite a bit. I can't imagine how many more people are going to be on that road. And you're talking about the improvements just on Mount Carmel and Mill. It's the other direction that's important also. Sundays, got church. Wednesday nights, church. You have bad traffic pretty much every day. Henry County, it's like a black hole. It just stops on the interstate, and everybody takes some little side streets, and it backs up. You're better off staying on the interstate. I can't imagine another 150 cars a day going down that road. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Phil Powell. I live at 761 Mill, which is adjacent to part of the new development that we were talking about. And of course, I concur with the previous speaker about the traffic situation. We've been there since 1988, and the traffic has gotten so bad that over the weekend, you just forget it. You can't get out of your homes to go anywhere because it's backed up from both directions. And my concern is, where would the traffic from the housing division, or should I say the subdivision, dump onto Mill Road? Or is it going to dump onto Mill Road or Mount Carmel? If it's dumping onto Mill Road, that's cave by the door. That's it. So what plans have been made to help alleviate some of that traffic off of Mill Road, especially for the residents that live there? And that's a question I don't know whether you've already answered it or not, but we see it every day. And the young man was absolutely right. It is backed up. And it goes almost between 81 and Mount Carmel Road. Tomorrow, come out and you'll see it for yourself. And it does it every Friday for sure, and on Sundays, and sometimes on Saturdays. You cannot get out of there. So that's my major concern. As far as development, fine, I'm for that. But we need to come up with the infrastructure to help support the development that we're developing. So that's my comments.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak in opposition of the case?
Good afternoon. My name's Jerome Hurdle. I'm at 108 Avondale Drive, which is right off of Mount Carmel, and I'm probably half mile, maybe a quarter mile from the four-way stop. And I echo what both gentlemen have said. Traffic is basically at a standstill on the weekends, most days. And I also am concerned, we have 4 projects slated for that area. They're going to tear the bridge down on Mount Carmel, which is going to put all of the traffic on Mill, getting out of our subdivision for, I don't know how long that project's going to take place for the I-75 project. There's a daycare that's going in. There's a retirement home that's going in, and now an additional 145 homes possibly. And we were told by the DOT at that time of the I-75 project that there would be no improvements and to the road, either the Mount Carmel or Mill Road as far as widening is concerned. So we're dumping a lot of traffic that's already overwhelming. There's churches on Mount Carmel now on the weekend, mega churches, that traffic just along that road is really bad. And most days, people they're continuing to build over in the plaza, and the people know that they can just cut down Mill Road to get to JCPenney's. And so it's just, the traffic is really bad. So I'm in agreement with the others.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak in opposition of the case? Okay, we'll ask the applicant to please come forward and to see if the board members have any other questions for the applicant or staff at this time.
When do you anticipate this subdivision to get started?
That's a good question for our client. We would look at doing the improvements to the traffic infrastructure, making those improvements first. He's willing to commit to that. It'll take some time to do the engineering as such for the subdivision, but the road, the intersection, the roundabout, I mean, I'll be honest, I mean, we're already starting to look at that, getting that kicked off, because you know, if some home buyers, if they can't get to and from our development, they're not going to buy our homes or buy his homes. I mean, so it's very important that we get those issues corrected as soon as possible. And, you know, it's you know, like I say, again, we live here, we work here as well. So.
I have a question for staff, and I hear the roundabout, and I'm in agreement with you. No one's going to buy a home if they can't get to it, if they see all the traffic. And I've been on that road, and I'm one of those that cut through. I'm sorry, they go from Target to JCPenney's because I don't want to get on the interstate, and it is horrible. And then I don't even want to do that now because you can't go anywhere. Are they going to widen that road? Is it? I mean, and then what about 81 down there with? I mean, do you think that's going to be a problem, or is that none of our business?
I would say Mill at 81 is a challenge.
Yes.
And I don't think that this study addresses that. The only time I've seen that intersection mentioned was for DRI associate, which is a development of regional impact associated with the South Point in the city of McDonough. And so...
Is that the city of McDonough down there, or is that still?
That intersection is not the city of McDonough, but Greta had tagged that intersection as needing improvement as part of the traffic study for South Point. When, at one point in time, Georgia DOT, for the Managed Lanes project, they were going to do the access to the managed lane, which would be in the center of the interstate. They were going to do it at Mount Carmel, which they're not going to do that now. But when they were, they had mentioned doing a roundabout at Mill, Mount Carmel, and at 81 and Mill. But Mill and 81, it's an issue. I don't know of any. I don't think it's on the SPLOST 4 list, at least off the top of my head. I don't recall it. But it's something will need to be done there sooner than later. I wished it would have been something done years ago, but it's a challenge. That's a tough spot.
My other, I guess, question to the applicant, since this whole development with the, and it's not the daycare that you own, it's the one that across the street, the assisted living?
Assisted living, yes.
Is that going in first before the homes? Do you know?
Not to my knowledge, no.
So what do you think is going to be built first?
I wish I could say.
You don't know? Okay.
Yeah,
I'm just, you know, just in my mind. Just
I hope soon, because I want to survey and engineer it. And that would be great. Yeah.
Okay. This. Yeah. I mean, I know you want to sell homes, but like you said, if they can't get to them, and I don't know what about this traffic situation.
Right.
It's
right. Well, I think it's a good opportunity here too, from the money the county would save from us kicking in our part to the Mill Road, Mount Carmel. Maybe they can apply some of those funds to the Mill and 81. That's
okay. Anyone else have any other questions? Mr. Risher.
I have a question of David. What's the what is the right-of-way width on Mill Road? Is it 60 or 80 feet?
Mill Road right-of-way, I believe we have 80 feet right-of-way on it.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. You may be seated.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Let's call for the case.
RZ 1403 JHJ 180 Henry LLC of Stockbridge, Georgia requests a rezoning from RA Residential Agricultural to R3 Single Family Residential for property located on the east and west sides of Mill Road, south of Mount Carmel Road, in land lots 143 and 146 of the 6th District. The property consists of 123.13 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a single family residential subdivision. The property is located in District 2.
I'll make a motion to deny the request for rezoning from RA to R3 and recommend approval for rezoning from RA to R2 for property located on east and west sides of Mill Road South and Mount Carmel Road with 14 conditions in addition to the one from DOT. Do I need to read the 14 conditions?
It's my understanding there were 16 conditions.
Ms. Nesbitt, if you would just provide Mr. Gilbert with a copy of those 14 conditions, because I understand some of them have been modified from the original recommendation from staff. So we'll place a copy up on the overhead, and if you want to begin reading them, you can, because they are different from what's in the book.
Okay. The list I have is 14.
That's correct.
That's correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So you want me to read them?
Yes, ma'am. Unless you want, would you prefer staff to read them, or you're fine?
Well, what's missing from what we have in our book, which we have 15 plus the 16 with the traffic study?
There's been some changes to some of the conditions that are in your book,
And why didn't we get a copy?
because the changes were made between the zoning advisory board member and the district commissioner. They had conversations regarding some of their desires. So we can certainly, I have a copy that I can distribute to.
That's okay, I just didn't know why we had something in our book that was different from what someone else had. And this is not, I can't read this.
I can't either.
Jeremy's handing out a copy now.
May I have a copy? I don't have the 15th on mine.
That's the study.
Oh,
And Sherry, we have a motion on the floor, but it has not been seconded. We do have a motion on the floor with
That's
this
correct.
14, and so the motion is still active, but we don't have a second.
Is there, I want to get a correction. Is there 14 or 15
Conditions.
There's 14 that's listed on your handout, but there's an additional condition regarding the intersection improvement. So it'll be a total of 15 conditions.
Okay. Is that the motion?
yes.
Okay. I second.
Any discussion?
R3 to R2.
Shall I read these at this point?
Well, the thing, I don't think, we don't have to read them. We've got them here. I think that, did you take away the lot size, the minimum lot size from 18,000 square feet to the minimum lot size on the south of the creek to 22,000 square feet? Was that what was removed?
That condition was removed because R2 has a minimum of 30,000 square feet.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Yes.
That would make sense. Okay. That answered my question. On discussion, anyone else have any other discussion items? Okay, I'll call for the vote. All in favor of the motion as presented by Ms. Nesbitt, indicate by raising your hand. It's unanimous, motion carried. Next case, please.
Comprehensive Plan Amendment 1401, Kunj Atlanta LLC of McDonough, Georgia, requests an amendment to the comprehensive plan for property located at 2332 Jonesboro Road in land lot 109 of the 6th District. The request is to amend the future land use map designation from office to commercial. The property is located in District 2, and Tyler McSwain is representing planning staff.
Good evening, Tyler.
Good evening, Madam Chairman and Board. Excuse me while I get my report ready for you. All right, once again, hello everyone. My name is Tyler McSwain, and I'll be giving you guys the report for the Kunj Atlanta, located for the address located at 2332 Jonesboro Road. The request to amend the future land use map for designation from O&I, office institutional, to commercial. The current land use is undeveloped land, is vacant. The applicant is requesting to amend the future land use map designation from office institutional to commercial. The office institutional is identified, used for the subject property by the Henry County City Joint 2030 Comprehensive Plan. The subject property is currently consistent with the future land use map, and the map doesn't show any commercial land use designations west on Jonesboro Road of the subject property and south on Chambers Road. The area consists of a major arterial intersection and has 3 corners developed for commercial use. The requested change will create and nodal commercial accommodations for neighboring communities along Chambers Road and Jonesboro Road. The subject property is not within the activity center, but the subject property is currently sandwiched between two suburban employment center east of Jonesboro Road and near Dutchtown School Zone west of Jonesboro Road. And if you can look at the future land use map that I have posted here, you can see the two centers here. One is the Dutchtown and the other one is the activity center there. And the subject property is right there as the plan development. Based upon the surrounding commercial land uses, the amendment would not create an impact on the FET. Staff recommends that based on the character of the area, planning staff recommends approval of the requested amendment.
Okay, does any of the board members have any questions for staff at this time? All righty, if you have no questions, I will ask the applicant to please come forward.
Madam Chair, distinguished board members, my name is Blake Prince. I am the consulting engineer on this project. My address is 110 North Berry Street in Stockbridge. Given the late hour, do you want me to present now, as we are also asking for a zoning change right after this?
About the comp plan amendment, so that's the only thing that we can address at this time.
Okay, all right. I wanted to really noted that adjacent property here, as we on our zoning map here in pink, is zoned as PD. That means we will actually be adjacent to commercial. And there would be a buffer between us and the residential area, as with the PD. Staff did provide me with a copy of the plans for the subdivision, the PD development beside us, and there is nothing stipulated to go beside us. I'm not sure what they would put there at this time. But our adjacent property is going to be commercial. We're going commercial. And what we're proposing at this time, we are required to turn in a site plan per the ULDC. At this time, we are actually discussing with Walgreens, and so we may be bringing a Walgreens in and not a gas station. The reason we have asked for C2 and not C1, typically companies like this like to have the open zoning, and C1 can close the deal down like this. So that is the reason we asked for C1, because they do allow convenience stores and gas stations to be put on C1. But again, that isn't etched in stone. We're talking to several different people at this time to develop this area, and we're not sure who we're going to bring in. But C2 opens our options a little bit more than C1. Thank you.
Okay. Did any of the board members have any questions for the applicant? All right, you may be seated. This time we're going to ask to see if anyone has would like to come and speak in favor of the case. We'll allow 10 minutes for that. And we'll allow 10 minutes for anyone that wants to speak in opposition of the case. Hearing none, I need the applicant to please come forward. I was going to tell you, you might want to just sit on the front row. Anyone have any questions? I don't, probably not. So you can be seated.
Thank you.
Okay, let's call for the case.
Comp Plan Amendment, Kunj Atlanta LLC of McDonough, Georgia, requests an amendment to the comprehensive plan for property located at 2332 Jonesboro Road in land lot 109 of the 6th District. The request is to amend the future land use map designation from office to commercial. The property is located in District 2.
make a motion to support the staff recommendation to approve an amendment for the future land use map designation from office institutional to commercial for property located at 2332 Jonesboro.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? All right, it's unanimous. None opposed. Okay, next case.
RZ 1402, Coonge Atlanta LLC of McDonough, Georgia, requests a rezoning from O&I Office Institutional to C2 General Commercial for property located at 2332 Jonesboro Road in land lot 109 of the 6th District. The property consists of 2.583 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a commercial development. The property is located in District 2, and Tyler McSwain is representing planning staff.
Good evening once again, Madam Chairman and board members. I will be reporting for the rezoning case for 2332 Jonesboro Road. The applicant is requesting to rezone the subject property consisting of 2.583 acres from O&I Office Institutional to C2 General Commercial for commercial retail use to construct a proposed gas station and convenience store. The Unified Land Development Code permits gas service stations in all commercial zoning districts and interchange activity centers districts only. According to the preliminary site plan dated January 20th, 2014 by J.B. Prince and Associates, the applicant is proposing a 6,000 square foot building with a canopy that will include 4 gas pump stations. There will be approximately 34 parking spaces near the proposed building. The applicant has a comprehensive plan amendment application running concurrently with this request to change the future land use map designation from office institutional to commercial. Excuse me. Staff recommends denial of the proposed rezoning request from office institutional to C2 general commercial, and recommends approval of rezoning the property from office institutional to C1 neighborhood commercial with 6 conditions.
Okay. Are these conditions updated?
Madam Chairman, the document that I am passing to you guys has the updated, but there's a 1 condition, this is a 6th condition, which is, I believe, has a comment from DOT on it, which is pending.
Okay, and does any other staff members have any questions for staff at this time?
I do have one question. Tyler, can you explain some of the other commercial facilities that could actually go in here on the C2?
Okay, that's no problem. In our Unified Land Development Code, we do have a list of proposed specific uses that are permissible in C2 or general commercial. We do have a list of, general speaking, of different commercial uses of stores. Like I said, I can give like a brief description of those as well. Give me 1 second. Yes, oh, thank you. Okay. The C2 general commercial uses, 1, all permitted C1 uses are permitted in C2. Auction gallery, automobile wash, community and regional shopping centers, department stores, furniture stores, professional type assembly and repair, such as items as glassware, custom jewelry, prosthetic devices, and other similar services and manufacture. Parking lots and structures, printing, job, when mechanical operation is not visible from the street, and employment no more than 4 persons, stationery and office machine sales, services, upholstery shops. Other uses may be determined by the planning staff to be similar, compatible with other above listed premises. Lawn and gardening, farmers market, rental of vehicles and equipment, gun sales and pawn shops, services of buildings and dwellings, radio and television stations, taxi offices, movies, concerts, or entertainment shows. I will put this for everyone to see.
Thank you, Tom.
Any other questions from the board members for staff? Okay, I hear none. The applicant, please come forward.
Madam Chair, board members, good evening. I do have a question on the last condition placed by DOT. I would actually like to review that, if I could, for a second. The question I have is on the joint drive. Are you discussing this on Chambers Road, or are you saying on Jonesboro Road?
That was going to be basically the added condition was we had recommended that the applicant coordinate with the adjoining owner to the north on Chambers.
Yes.
To place a shared access curb cut to Chambers that is located within the limits of the existing left turn bay that's already out there.
Understand.
And if you're not able to get it, obviously you can have a curb cut within your frontage on Chambers, but it'll be a restricted curb cut, as in a right in, right out
only. Okay. The reason I ask, right now, as I understand it, the property to the north of us is in foreclosure, and sometimes getting a project going with a project beside it that's in foreclosure is very, very difficult to get approval from a bank, and who knows how long this will sit. So I don't want to put this as a condition in here when we will have to, I'll have to submit plans to DOT, to Henry County DOT, prior to approval. So we can kind of cross that bridge as we get there. I just don't want to stipulate it now and have it come back to where we can't develop this site because of this. I do understand what he's saying, and there is some distance issues from the intersection, and we are open to doing a joint use drive with the neighbors. I just don't want to get an issue where we can't get a hold of them, and this becomes a problem to us with our development. Because to do a joint use drive, we have to actually get approval from the adjacent owners and easements and set everything up so that we can both access through it. And at this time, we don't know who the adjacent owners are going to be. So this could create some hardship on us developing this property if it's in the conditions.
Okay. Go ahead,
and
staff.
That's one of the reasons it's worded. If you can't do it and you end up doing something, you could still do access within your frontage, but
okay.
We get it.
Would we be able to do a joint use drive and then a right in, right out further down? Joint use here, right in, right out here. I just don't want to shut the door. Again, we're going to have to go for DOT approval prior to getting these plans approved. And then my client is asking this question. And I realize that's very close.
It's hard to say on the spot. I know this is something we can discuss between now and the BOC if that's something that's okay with the board tonight. But I would hate to make a call on that.
Yeah, and I'm at the
condition. I guess my question is, with the condition that we've put on there for the study, let that discussion continue, or require that discussion to continue?
Would somebody please read to me the condition? I don't have a copy of it, so
It just says pending DOT condition.
Do you want me to
could you read
it?
the entire condition for me so
I
I can
have it,
figure out how to
Sherry.
help?
Oh, I was going to say, well, that's all mine says.
Here's the wording I had. The applicant/owner developer is to coordinate with the adjoining owner to the north to place a shared access curb cut to Chambers Road that is located within the limits of the existing northbound left turn bay along Chambers Road. Should the applicant and adjoining owner not be able to reach an agreement for shared access, the site's access along Chambers Road within the applicant's site frontage. Let me rephrase that. Should the applicant and adjoining owner not be able to come to reach an agreement for shared access along Chambers, then the access will be required within the applicant's frontage. and it would be a right in, right out.
And I don't think there's anything additional that needs to be added. It doesn't tie the applicant to having to do it. We're just recommending that because that is the preferred, since we know that that property will be developed in the near future. And I still think that if the applicant is looking to have a secondary curb cut, that is something that can be handled at the development stage, even if it's not worked out prior to the property being rezoned. I don't want to get too tied down to a site plan, simply because all we're asking this board to do is to determine if commercial is appropriate. Like the applicant has indicated, when we first received the application, we thought it was going to be a convenience store slash gas station. It now appears that it may be something else. I would hate to tie the applicant to a particular use into this site plan, because one, it hasn't been graded out, no engineering has been done, and he may get out there and determine that it may not work in that location. So I think right now the condition that David has would suffice to move it on to the board, and then we can talk about curb cuts, access points, once development plans are submitted.
So we're saying keep it on, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so any other questions to the applicant from the board?
I guess my question is, the proposed use is a gas station convenience store, and you're asking for a C2.
Well, when we say proposed use, we're required to turn in a site plan with some usage.
Right.
And a convenience store is what we've initially were discussing.
Okay.
And at this time, again, we're discussing with Walgreens, and there's a few other people that we're discussing with. You know, and as it progresses, we may change 3 or 4 times before we actually nail down a product.
Okay.
But right now, we just need as much wiggle room as we can to work with the different people that we are trying to bring in, you know, into the county.
I understand.
Okay, and Blake, I'm sorry, I didn't let you continue. Were you finished? I know you said you had a question about one of the conditions, and we did answer that. We kind of got into that. Was there anything else you wanted to add to staff comments?
That's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
I just don't want to get, again, locked into where we can't do, you know, another entrance or a curb cut later on down the road. I just don't want the verbiage to get too narrow.
Okay.
Where we can't do that.
And he read the verbiage, and we're going to, okay, we're good with that. Any other comments or questions to the applicant from the board members? Okay. Sherry, do I need to have him to be seated and do the 10-minute thing, or, I mean, yeah, just to be fair. Okay, go ahead and just be seated in the front row, and then just to be fair. Follow protocol. I know it's getting late, but anyone that wants to speak in favor of this case? Okay, anyone want to speak in opposition of this case? Okay, would you like to come back up? And so what was, I was going to ask you a question. Was there a reason, the reasoning for you not to want a C1 versus a C2, because you feel like you have more options to
Yes, ma'am.
put things there?
Yes, ma'am. When we're marketing the property, sometimes companies like Walgreens or CVS or different ones like this look at the zoning, and they don't want to be shoehorned into only selling certain products, or they won't have an issue with selling a product. Because if, again, when you went over the C2, I think there's something in there, I'd have to go through, the list is very long, with not really grocery type items, but items similar to this. And we just don't want to get painted in a corner on our zoning to where we're not able to market to everyone we're trying to. I mean, if it's an issue like you guys don't want a specific type business in there, maybe a condition would be a good use to put in there. But we just don't want to get shoehorned into, you know, the C1 if we have the option to go C2.
Well, I just, you know, my concern is, you know, we asked for it to be OI and then to move up, and then we know that this is a neighborhood commercial, so we're trying to, you know, look at it that way also. So
Yes, ma'am.
on that flip side, so, you know, for it to be commercial, you know, from where it was already zoned at. So, you know, I just wanted to hear what you had to say as far as, you know, why you felt like then, and, you know, as far as where we're coming from, you know, it might be, well, because it's so residential in that area, you know, off of Chambers Road. We just, have to look at that very closely too, so.
Yes, ma'am.
But we appreciate your comments.
I'm not sure NPD if they could do C2 beside us. Are they able to do C2 right beside us? Because, this is zone PD already.
Oh, well, I knew that, but see, I didn't know that it's C2. I thought it was only C1.
Under the plan development, they are entitled to C1 and C2 uses.
Yes,
They're
ma'am.
entitled
No
to it.
C3.
Would they have to come here for that request?
It's already been approved.
So beside us could be C2 already.
Okay.
And I certainly don't want to keep belaboring this request, but I think in certainly with staff's recommendation, we were more concerned with there is residential property that's going to be going along Chambers Road. So our concern was more or less the properties that are along Chambers Road that are undeveloped. Granted, you're absolutely right. It is a planned development that cushions this property in, which is one of the bases we use for making the determination to approve the comp plan amendment. But we always try to make sure that good planning practice is that we try to transition down, especially when there is residential within the immediate area.
Okay, any other questions for the applicant? Okay, we have no more questions. You may be seated.
Thank you.
Call for the case. No, I think they'll call it. Call the case.
RZ 1402, Kunj Atlanta LLC of McDonough, Georgia, requests a rezoning from O&I Office Institutional to C2 General Commercial for property located at 2332 Jonesboro Road in Land Lot 109 of the 6th District. The property consists of 2.583 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a commercial development.
I make a motion to support the staff recommendation to deny the proposed rezoning request from O&I to C2 and recommend the approval of rezoning the property from O&I to C1 with 5 conditions as recommended by staff and additional recommendation from DOT.
Have a motion by Ms. Nesbitt.
A second.
Have a second by Mr. Nelson. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by raising your hand. It's unanimous. Motion carried. Okay. Okay, at this time, that concludes the cases that we have for the evening. But we are in the time when we have public comment, so we will allow 10 minutes total for public comment if anyone would like to come up and make any comments or to the board. I see a lot of people standing up and walking out, but no one coming to, and we just want to make sure that those that were in the audience didn't want to come up and speak. Okay, so motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay.